Sliding on up. It's episode 19, season 3 of the AVG Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Michael Marcanio. I'm here joined by Tyler Revelis, also known as Ya Boy T, somehow, Andre Navarro, and Anthony Revelis. And listen, we're here to tell you some fantasy football knowledge, and even just some football knowledge. Maybe you'll learn something. Maybe we're talking tight ends today. Maybe you'll hear your tight end on your favorite team, and you'll be like, "Wow, I didn't know this fantastic stat about this tight end that's on my favorite team." And then you can go tell your friends these fantastic stats. So you're welcome in advance. Now, before we start, I just gotta let you know, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We always play, whenever we're going over these rankings and things like that, we always play like highlights throughout us talking about it. So if you want to go kind of have that visual aid when we're talking about certain players, it helps you out when you're doing your research. So go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you want any type of direct contact with us, go ahead and follow us on Instagram or Twitter. That's avg.fantasyfootball for both of those. And we can respond to your questions. If you need help on your dynasty league, anything like that, we got you. We got your back. Okay. And if you didn't already, go ahead and leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app or whatever podcast app you use. It helps us out tremendously. If you also, I always forget about this one, but you double check down below. I always do a table of contents. So if you want to hear us talk about a certain tight end, and you don't really care about the other stuff, you can go in the table of contents and click on that timestamp, and it'll just take you directly to that part of the podcast when we're talking about that player. So those are all helpful things to help you out with your fantasy football league. And let's get started. You want to talk about break down what we're doing today, Tyler?
Go ahead, T.
Yeah, go ahead, T.
Yeah, see, they call me T. I was actually going to say that. Drake calls me T
boy.
all the time.
I actually do call him T all the time.
I think Drake calls him T.
Ray Kenny calls me T all the time.
I actually do call him T, and he's my boy, so when he does say that, it hits home.
So it is his boy T.
He is my boy T.
See?
Or you should hear what they say when you're not around.
Hey, why don't you shut your lips and learn over there?
I hear it. They tell me. They're stand-up guys.
All right, but yeah, we're just going to go over it's the early rankings. What are we in? It's about to be June. What is it? May 31st. So these are early tight end rankings. So
it'll be June when you hear this.
It'll be June when you hear this, actually. Yeah. So
let's get it.
But like I said, early half-point PPR tight end rankings. Obviously, as we get closer to the season, once we get into training camp and all that stuff, these rankings will get adjusted. And we'll do another episode, obviously, when we get closer to the season. We'll kind of like our final, tight end rankings for when we get into the draft season. But for now, early tight end rankings. Obviously everything looks like it's going to be on like par to get ready for the regular NFL season. Like everything's good to go from this standpoint so far. I guess we could just jump right into it. We have our consensus top 12. We all have our list, but obviously this is the consensus top 12 of just me, Andre, and Anthony right here. Mr. Mike did not do a list this time.
We don't have to focus on that. Let's get on to the...
I'm just letting you know because you did a list. You did a list last time.
No, yeah, I know.
But he had Vance McDonald and Ebron in there, so
yeah,
we're good.
No,
you cannot rank Big Ben as a...
And Claypool. He put Claypool in there just in case he is a tight end. He will be a top 12. So
he will give you that stat about that player that's on your team. If your team is the Steelers, he will bring that up.
He's got you. He's got you.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, he had Kelce. You had Kelce at one anyway.
For sure, yeah. I think we all had Kelce at one right here. Consensus, number one tight end. I mean, kind of makes sense. Tight end won last year, 2018, tight end. And in 2017, he finished as a tight end too, but he was only 1 point behind Gronk for the tight end spot, number one spot right there. So you pretty much know what you're going to get with Kelce, especially with Mahomes slinging the rock to him over there.
Yeah, I mean, he could miss 3 games and still finish in the top 3.
Yeah.
Maybe 4.
Yeah. I mean,
he's just
you're right.
about as safe as he comes. I know last year you took him in like the turn of the first round, right?
Yeah, so we did a little segment where I was kind of debating or making the argument to where could you take Kelce in the first round. And in one of our leagues, this is a full point PPR league. I had the 11th pick, and I actually took him at 11 because I just didn't, the 12th pick. I didn't want him to possibly go right there. Worked out pretty good for me. I got Kelce at 11. It came back around. Dalvin Cook was there, so I snagged him up. I think he finished as the 17th overall player for PPR players. So, I mean, not too far off as the 11th overall pick.
Yeah, I was going to say, going into this year, I don't know if I'd take him in the first round. He'd kind of probably be more of that. I think if a certain tier of running backs that goes for me and a certain tier of receivers, I'd maybe consider him in the, mid to back into the second round, depending on how I like to play like my tight ends. I try and wait, but sometimes I'll snag someone if it's worth it. So, but he's going to be week in and week consistent. So, I'm not mad at someone if you take him in the second. Yeah,
I agree with you. I don't think I would be taking him in the first round this year. But just, I was looking at the last 3 years in terms of half-point PPR, just like the overall finish for a player. He's finished as a top 25 player 3 straight years in a row. So, I mean, I'm just going to take the consistency that he'll be a top 25 pick. So, like I said, just safe, consistent guy. I mean, if you can get him in like the second round, if he falls to that third round, I mean, yeah, you're going to get like top 25 player.
I mean, yeah, he's been consistent since he's gotten to the league. His worst finish he's ever had, standard or PPR, is 9. 4 straight, PPR leagues, I saw he has 4 straight 1 finishes.
Yeah.
I mean, he just gets it done. He's in a good offense. I mean, him and Mahomes, obviously, they have really good chemistry. He's one of those, I'm not going to take him out of 1 until someone surpasses him. I mean, dude's still a beast. He's like 30. So, I mean, he's still got a few good years left in him, I would say. And for someone who's never been outside of the top 10, I mean, just consistency. So
savage.
Yeah, basically he's a monster. Yeah. We don't need to say anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could say, like you said, he is turning 30, so he's getting kind of, I guess you could say on the tail end of his career, even though he's still a savage. So, I mean, I guess the guy who could kind of take over that number 1 spot, we got at number 2 right here, George Kittle. I think he was number 2 for all of us across the board. I mean, here's your guy, Mr. Kittle. I'll let you steal the show on this one.
Man, I want to see how much he gets paid. I mean, they were saying some crazy stats on like Pro Football Focus as far as how he doesn't get targeted downfield that much, but his yak is like ridiculous, and he has an absurd. I mean, we're watching it. Just broken tackles, but I think it's more what he does when he doesn't have the ball too. Like his blocking is ridiculous. I mean, you've seen the videos where he's like pancaking dudes and just like laughing. Like he loves to block. So I think he's a reason the Niners are as good as they are. So he does like intangible shit on top of like things that you can see like fantasy wise.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's a total package. I mean, his time. I mean, probably next year you can consider him for 1. I mean, it's him or Kelce all the way. I mean, I'll let you. I mean, I don't want to be a homer too much. So
there's not really much to say on Kittle. I mean, he's been 85 catches, over 1,000 yards 2 years in a row. The touchdowns have been low. You get a little bit of a spike in those touchdowns. He might push Kelce for a 1. He could finish as a tight end 1.
Yeah, it's not
especially like I said, if Kelce has a down touchdown year and he has a spike in touchdown years, it's not unrealistic to see that. But one of the few tight ends that you can basically is a receiver. So
yeah, I mean, right here, I like these hashtag interesting stats, but I was just looking at, I like when a player can catch the ball and then he has the ability to cause forced missed tackles. You were saying how this guy's a monster. I mean, we saw it in the was it the playoff game where he, the Saints, I think it was.
Yeah.
Or I forget what it was. But
it was like that crazy.
Yeah,
that
crazy. He
game.
broke a couple tackles to get them in like field goal range, I think, for the game-winning field goal. But in terms of like, this isn't like running backs. This is just like receivers or tight ends. He led all like receiving players with 20 forced missed tackles. I mean, so the guy's just a savage. I mean, so when he catches the ball, he's not easy.
Yeah, and he's
to
fast.
bring down. And I think actually bringing a guy like Brandon Ayuk into the offense is only going to help him because now it's just another weapon that can help stretch the field. That the defense are going to have to pay attention to.
How to do that?
I think we're going to have to get that soundbite or that drop.
Yeah.
I'll work on it.
His true catch rate was 94.4%. So that's basically taking away targets that are uncatchable.
Yeah,
that's that's almost 100% of the time. It's not there, but it's
especially
almost
for
there.
a tight end. He does it all, man. It's crazy. For a 5th round draft pick too.
I feel like for these first couple guys, especially with tight ends, it's like, yeah, really good, really good, really good. Like the next after it kind of drops off a little bit.
Yeah.
don't know.
What round would you
still have a
guys
few more good guys
take
out there,
him?
probably.
No, for sure.
Where would you guys
Like,
kind
I
of grade
feel
him
you.
out as what round would you be comfortable taking Kittle? Since we just answered that question with Kelce.
I'd probably say like mid to
sec-
third back at the end of the third round.
Oh, where you would take? I mean,
Where I would take him. If he falls to the fourth round, I think it'd be like, okay, like here's the guy where like
Yeah.
I could really jump on it,
yeah.
and take care of it,
Yeah,
and
it's
get some value.
I agree with Ty. I think mid to late third is where I'm okay with considering looking at him there. Kelce, like we said, is probably going to be closer to that mid to turn. Kittle might be 7-8 picks apart, which is say you already have one solid running back, one solid receiver, and you just don't personally like the guys right there. It's like, all right, I'm going to take Kittle and know I have a solid tight end. So not mad at it in the third round middle. That's kind of where I'm okay with it.
Yeah, we're not too far off. I was thinking like early to mid, but we're talking 5-6 picks. So yeah, if you can get him in the fourth though with 3 good picks out, you can, man.
Yeah, there's some 10-team leagues where you could get him in.
Oh, 10
You have a
yeah.
late third round pick, and you come back around on that turn. He'll probably be there for you. So we jump to the next guy. Number 3, we got Mark Andrews from the Ravens. We kind of see Mark Andrews blow up last year with Lamar Jackson in that MVP campaign he had. He led all tight ends with touchdown receptions, right?
Yep, 10 of them things.
Them
10 of them
things.
things.
So we pretty much all had Mark Andrews slated at number 3, I think, as well. Kind of just all across the board right now. We're all agreeing 1, 2, 3 as these tight ends right here. Would you put all 3 of these guys in a tier, or would you just have Kelce and Kittle in a tier, and then now this is like Andrews would be like tier 2?
I think I'd throw Andrews in that tier.
Yeah.
You do have the departure of
Hayden Hurst.
Hayden Hurst. I had to look at the list. I was like, I know he's on there somewhere. Hayden Hurst. Like I said, I anticipate Lamar Jackson to throw a little bit more, which only leads to Mark Andrews having a little more production. And I mean, I'm trying to pull up his numbers right now. You said the 10 touchdowns. He went over 1,000 yards, right? Or he was really close.
He was a little, a little short, but.
Yeah, but I anticipate. I mean, some of those tight ends. So they throw to the tight end more than anyone else in the league, I believe it was, or the Eagles first, them second. It was something like that.
Yeah.
But I'd still throw him in that tier. Like I said, I see a little bit of more passing volume from the Ravens, so I think it's only going to give him a little bit more volume. 98 targets last year. I kind of see that going up to 110, 120, which puts him just below those other 2. But I'd still throw him in that same tier.
Well, I think what helps him is that they really utilize him off that play action. And with a guy like Lamar Jackson, I mean, you have Mark Ingram. They go get J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State. It's like, I mean, all you need is that linebacker or that safety or whatever just to buy it a second to come in, and then boom, Andrews over the top, especially when they get in close right there.
And he's freakishly athletic too, like sneaky. But Lamar Jackson trusts him too. I forgot who they were playing, but it was like right before half. It was like 3rd and 10, and he was literally getting sacked. He just threw it up. He like found Mark Andrews and just like threw it up, and he caught it. I was like, that was such a terrible pass, but that's like a safety blanket.
Would you say he is the wide receiver 1 for the Ravens, or would you put like a Hollywood Brown, or I guess it's all Hollywood Brown, right? Him or Hollywood?
I mean, consistency, I would say him, just because Hollywood Brown has those like 3-catch, 21-yard games that I just wouldn't like. But yeah, I would say he is. But you can argue it.
Yeah, I'd almost say it's kind of similar to what Kansas City has, where it's, like he said, consistency. Tyreek, he's been a monster, but he does have up and down games just due to like his style of play. Yeah. If Marquise Brown develops, into that true number 1, I think it's gonna be a similar situation where it's like they're both almost respectively the ones, just different position, and then Marquise, is more of a blow up type of game, and you got the week in week out consistency with Andrews. So,
for sure.
We jump into number 4 right here. We got Zach Ertz from the Eagles. For me right here, I think those, like you said, those first 3 would be a tier. I think after that, when you get to 4, this will kind of be like the next tier for me personally. I know Zach Ertz, was it 2 years ago? It was like 156 targets. Crazy stats. It's crazy to think he had 156 targets and he didn't even finish as the tight end 1. Kelce did. But, I was actually big on like the regression that he would have from that previous year, just due to like, they're not going to be funneling him the ball as much. He did have a lot of regression. I think it was like 250 less yards, like almost nearly 30 less receptions, 2 less touchdowns. And it's crazy to think that with like the lack of weapons that this Eagles passing attack had. Like there was no, Alshon was hurt, Deshaun got hurt after week 1. They were playing with like backup guys, like AFL guys.
Yeah, Greg Ward was playing.
So it's just crazy to think that like he couldn't at least get to that like floor of what he had 2 years ago. Now you got to think with all these other weapons they've brought in through free agency trades and the draft and whatnot. I mean, do you think he can repeat where he was? I mean, what's your guys' thoughts? He's one of the trickiest guys for me.
I don't know if it was that he underperformed. I mean, he had only played 15 games, so he missed a game last year. Still had 135 targets. You put another game in there, he's in the 140 range. I agree. We knew some regression was coming, but I mean, 10, 15 targets isn't really that much of a regression. The yards per reception was higher. It was the catch rate that was down a little bit lower, which could have led to teams taking him away more because he was literally the only option outside for a receiver outside of him and Goddard. So I think that's what you saw with that. I think having these guys back, which we don't even know if Alshon's going to be ready to start the year. He had that Linz flank, or have you said that Linz Frank?
Yeah,
Linz Frank.
Yeah.
He had that surgery, so we don't even know if he's ready for week 1. So I think, but having these guys, assuming you have a healthy Deshaun, Rager, Goodwin, some of these other guys, Jeffrey, I think it only helps his catch percentage go up. But I do see the targets coming down to. I think I have him projected more in like the 110, 115, 120 range. But I looked at his numbers over the years and when he's in that range, and he's still, someone who's getting you 70 to 80 catches, 800 to 1,000 yards, 5 to 8 touchdowns. So a tight end 4, I'll take that.
Consistency.
Yeah.
I agree with pretty much everything you said. I had him, I think, one spot lower. But I mean, he's getting over 100 targets. I mean, Mark Andrews still isn't getting that. So the volume is still there. It's just more they have Goddard, and then they have other wideouts now. So I'm just curious how they're going to use all the weapons, which is why I'm a little lower. But I mean, I didn't pay attention to Ertz too much, and then I looked up and I was like, oh, he's not doing too good. And then he finishes top 5. So that's when you got a good tight end, when you don't even think he's doing that good and he's still putting up. And like you said, they had a bad offense last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if you like Carson Wentz, I like Carson Wentz. You got to assume he's going to be a part of that. So, I mean,
it's kind of like his go-to guy. I feel like he's got the best
him.
rapport with Ertz. Wentz does.
For sure. I remember that game.
All right, so we jump into the consensus number 5 overall pick right here. I think this is where we kind of started differing in all of our rankings right now.
Yeah.
I'm a lot lower on Waller. I can't remember, Anthony, where you are. We do have a beer bet. So if you're new to the podcast, we'll do beer bets where we will bet, obviously, and then the loser has to chug a beer. So we have a beer bet where me and Anthony said Darren Waller would go under 70 catches. Andre said Darren Waller would go over 70 catches. So I'm a little lower on Waller. I don't know if you want to go first, Dre, because it's kind of like your guy.
I mean, the sample size isn't there, so that's, could lead to the skepticism. I mean, this is his first full year, but he did have, 117 targets. I think that is going to drop. I do think the 90 catches for 1145 is where I think that is falling. I think the 3 touchdown is what I think goes up. I think him and Mark Andrews are like flipped. Like, I think he might get like more love on the touchdown side and less yards, to where that might switch. Like, I could see Andrews having a lot more catches in 60 to where I can have him seeing a lot less. So it's just the offense. They got all those wide receivers. They got Lynn Bowden, who's going to be like their little Swiss Army knife. No one really likes Derek Carr, which is obviously another reason, but I just can't see him getting 25 less catches than last year going off the bet. I just still see at least 75 catches. I mean, I still think he's Carr's number 1 until proven otherwise. And this whole coronavirus thing, I feel, is hurting the rookies learning the playbook and getting this chemistry to where he already knows a lot more. So he's got like that one up. And dude's still an athlete, too. He's a big dude, and he's fast. On top of all that other stuff. And Gruden loves him. He's just like a big body wide receiver. Big boy, good story. Hopefully the Vegas lifestyle doesn't get to him. But yeah, top five.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time. Like, I know there is the 1 year, but I know there is some of these guys. They're still rookies. They're still, I don't think Ruggs' first year at least is going to be a target hog coming into this team. Tyrell's he is what he is. Renfro's a slot guy. I still have him pegged out for about 90 targets. So you tell me the guy's going to get 90 targets. Like Dre said, I think those 3 touchdowns are coming up. He's been relatively successful with this catch percentage. So, 90 targets, if he catches 70% of those balls and gets 5-6 touchdowns, he's going to finish in the top 8. And he's shown it. We get into some of these other tight ends, they haven't shown it. So that's where I'm like, okay, if I got someone who's shown it to me, who's shown he's a pretty good, you can almost say elite athlete for a tight end, you're going to get me 90 targets. He can be the one in a game, and he can actually take over a game. So that's where I come into some of these tight ends. It's like, can these tight ends take over the game, or are they just going to be 5 for 55 and a touchdown here and there, and they just plod their way to, kind of use that word, plow their way to a top 12 finish. I want someone who can kind of win me some games, and he can do that, especially in PPR leagues.
What round would you feel comfortable taking him in?
5, like 6, like turn of the 6th, late 6th, early 7th.
Yeah, I'd say somewhere in 6th, 7th. I'm okay with it. Yeah, 6th, 7th.
Yeah.
If I got my lineup kind of stacked out and I'm pretty balanced and I don't want to take a chance on a quarterback, I'm not mad at Waller in the 6th.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, that's not too bad. I guess the 7th is kind of like, I guess, where I would gauge it. I don't know if I'm going to have a lot of Wallers on my team because I'll probably just try to reach for another player in that position, maybe a running back, if there's a good value there and whatnot. But I was just really looking at this Raiders offense right there. What I have Waller at 8. I was looking at the Raiders offense. So the last 2 years, I mean, obviously Darren Waller finished as tight end 3. Previous year before that, Jared Cook was there. He was the tight end 5. So I was just thinking like, okay, it's just kind of like the offense. Like, do they really funnel targets through the tight end? I mean, obviously Jared Cook did it 1 year. Next year, Darren Waller did it. But just really looking at the numbers here, both those seasons, the tight ends had 100 or more targets, but then no receiver went over 90 targets and no wide receiver topped 750 yards 2 years in a row. I think that's why they went out in this draft. They get Henry Ruggs, they get Lem Bowden, they get Brian Edwards from South Carolina. Yeah. I think Josh Jacobs obviously is a guy where he can be utilized in the passing game. I know they got rid of Dwayne Washington. I think they still got Jalen Richard, right?
Richard's still there.
So he'll be utilized in the passing game here and there. But I just don't think that he's going to see 100+ targets. I think that you have all these weapons that came in that it's kind of like, okay, we need weapons. You know what I'm saying? You can't rely on Hunter Renfrow, Tyrell Williams. I mean, was it Jordy Nelson for a brief stint until I think he got hurt, right?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't had much.
I'm thinking more of it's just like these tight ends have performed because there's no real weapons outside to get the ball to, so they're kind of like, okay, we have to move the ball through someone. And Derek Carr, obviously, I personally don't think is very good, so I think that he kind of is really leaning on these tight ends to get it done. Could it help them? Could like these weapons actually stretch the field, and now maybe it opens the field up for Waller more? That's a possibility as well. But I'm just going to take the fact that if no receiver has seen 90+ targets or 750+ yards, that I would like to think that will
change.
Yeah, the regression will come back to the mean in a sense.
Yeah,
for these
I think we
receivers
all
and
think
tights.
that. I mean, how low do you think? How do you see his targets going down to?
I can't remember what it
Because
said. He
if
had
you got
100.
If you have him at 8, 9, you got to be putting him down for 70 targets roughly, unless you're projecting in some of these other guys to be going up to 90.
Yeah, I just think. I mean,
And I'm not and I don't think you're not talented if you can get 1,145 yards and catch 76% of your balls. And you got some
full season.
Yeah, you got some athletic ability to do that. We've seen some guys who are targeted high, and we can get into Gesicki later. He's 90 targets, he catches 50% of his balls, and there's some ugly numbers. I don't think they're as talented
They're discussing for sure
to do what he does to that. He might still be the number 1 next year.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I say. He could still be the best receiver next year with these guys developing, maybe halfway through, or by next year it's a different case. But he could very well still be the best receiver in Oakland.
And I mean,
he's
he's built like a receiver. He's 6'5". He's a bigger one, a bigger size, but he ran a 4.46 at the combine. So
4.46.
he ran a 4.46. You can look it up. 4.4. So he's 250 pounds almost. Like,
yeah,
he can run the seams as long as Derek Carr can hit him in stride. He's shown he can, and it's just a matter of it's the consistency, with him. But athletically, he's top notch. So,
and I told Trey, I was like, we have that bet for 70 receptions. I was like, did I look? Have Waller? I had him statted out for like 68 or 67 receptions.
Now no matter what,
it's right there.
Hey, you know what's funny? If he's in his room and he looks, he's like, if I do my math, that's 72. He's like, fuck that, 69 it is.
3 less
69. I did. Let me do my math. It's not 72. It's 69.
I'm gonna make sure my projections say 69 targets.
Sure.
No
That's
matter
just
what.
gotta match for sure.
for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just on the opposite side of like you get all these other talented players. You're obviously gonna have certain plays that are schemed to get Ruggs. Maybe bubble screens from Lem Bowden and end around. So, is he gonna see 100+ targets? I don't think so. And I think that just not seeing that many targets is obviously opportunities. The touchdowns weren't there for whatever reason it was. I mean, only 5 for having 117 targets. He only had 5 end zone targets, which was 15th most amongst tight ends. I mean, you got to think of a guy getting 117 targets, kind of being the number 1 option in the passing attack. To only get 5 end zone targets is something that you don't like seeing. And I think now when you bring these other mouths to feed in through the passing attack with Ruggs and Bowden Jr., Brian Edwards and stuff like that, you see, like you say, you still have Hunter Renfrow. Yeah, I don't know. I just think there's going to be some regression. I think he's going to be drafted way higher because of what he what he produced last year, and that's just something like a price tag I personally won't be willing to pay. But we'll see what happens. We've got the beer bet. We'll keep you updated on the beer bet.
I should finish at 69 this year.
Oh. Right, we're all going to be watching Week 17. Like
he's going to finish at 70, so we all have to chug a beer.
Yeah. That would be funny. Yeah. That would be funny.
All right, we're jumping to number 6 here. We got Evan Engram from the Giants. I feel like people are kind of sleeping on Evan Engram. I mean, he was being drafted as a top 5 tight end last year. Got hurt midway through the year, tried to come back, but then ended up, sitting out for the entire season. What are you guys' thoughts? I had him at 5. Dre, where did you have him at?
6,
Anthony had him at 6, and then you have him at 8.
Anthony at 8.
So I had him the lowest.
I mean, you guarantee me he could stay on the field.
Exactly.
I'd probably have him higher than 5.
Yeah.
Show me rookie Evan Engram, and he's jumping up, but
I think that's all it is.
Availability, T. Yeah, he's a stud.
I mean, he was still on pace for like over 100 and I think it was I did the math. I might be off a few targets. Give me a little bit break on that. I don't want someone coming at me. It was 129 targets, not 123. But,
Still pretty good though.
I think it was on pace for 120 something targets.
122 actually. I have it right.
Okay,
here.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, these comments are people are ruthless, dude.
Hey, they ain't got nothing better to do. It's all good, dude. That's what we're here for.
They're like when we're on the fly, we can't think of some of these stats like on the fly. I mean, dude, you know how many stats there are?
Yeah.
And then people are like, they'll just take one, they'll fucking new tab, Google the exact stat, and be like, no, you're wrong.
Hey, if you check us on 2 stats
wrong,
we gave you 50 stats, then our percentage is pretty good.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, dude, that's like a hella high percentage.
The best was that Matt Stafford video. We literally made a video about Matt Stafford being underrated,
giving him
and
love.
all these Lions fans just
bitter.
got so upset about Dre kind of shitting on their draft. But.
Yeah,
I mean listen. You just telling me the names of their players and where they went doesn't tell me anything other than their names and where they went. So
hey, listen,
don't mean shit.
we were like hyping up the Lions players. He's like, you know what? That guy over there.
DeAndre Swift is a fucking guy.
He said he didn't like
guess what? We're doubling down,
we won't know
Lions
for a few
fans.
years.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Evan Engram, man, if the dude's healthy, he's going to finish in the top. I don't see a case where he finishes outside the top 8.
I mean, he finished as the tight end 14 last year, and that was only in 8 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's pretty good.
Yeah, the potential's through the roof, but
I mean, he hasn't played a full season yet, so they said the injury concern is there. A lot of us, we work in the clubs or the hospitality industry out here in Las Vegas. And I remember seeing Evan Engram when I was working at a Marquee Day Club. And I just see this big guy. He had this big, curly fro. And I'm just thinking, this guy is a mammoth man. Like, I didn't know who he was because, obviously you can't really tell sometimes. They have their helmets on and stuff. But I just remember seeing this guy. He was just massive. And I was thinking, like, that is a big dude right there. Like, that's a big guy. And my buddy comes over and he goes, oh, I have Evan Engram in my cabana. And I'm like, oh, that's Evan Engram? And I just couldn't imagine trying to tackle him. Like, he wasn't even wearing any pads, and he was just massive.
Yeah, he came into my spot, too. He's, like, up there with, like, Frank Thomas. Frank Thomas was, like, talking to him, and I was like, and Frank Thomas is a big,
dude.
fucking dude. And
6'5", 500 pounds.
And they're
almost.
He was they look pretty. I mean, obviously, Frank Thomas had got some weight on him, but I'm saying stature wise and like shoulder, I was like shoulder length or width. I was like, I couldn't imagine being a safety trying to pop him. And he runs a 4.4, 4.5. So. Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing that's hard to really dictate Evan Engram, obviously he was hurt, so it's hard to really gauge it. I mean, you get Danny Dimes in now for the full year, second year into the league. You have Darius Slayton, the rookie, second year. Him and Danny Dimes had the rapport as being rookies together. But then it was really hard to gauge it because there wasn't a really full game where you had Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, Darius Slayton, Saquon Barkley, and Evan Engram all on the field for Danny Dimes' disposal to really, see where he's going to like gauge these targets and spread them out. So I feel like that's what's kind of hard for me personally to really gauge him because it's like, once you get all these weapons on the field, is he going to lean towards one guy more? Is it going to be one game Tate, one game Engram and stuff like that? But just some numbers. Danny Dimes, when he was out there with Evan Engram, the target distribution, he had 8 targets, 7, 11, 5, 7, and 8. I mean, just for a tight end right there, those are solid numbers in terms of target-wise across the board right there.
100%.
Yeah, because he didn't start week 1, huh? It was
Eli Manning.
yeah.
You said Danny Dimes' disposal pretty smoothly, too.
Yeah.
Like, that was... Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like where you're going to get him this year. Last year you were getting him like 5th to 6th round.
Yeah.
So he's got to be lower this year on ADP.
I think he'll be one of the values because people are going to forget about him, and they're going to see guys like Darren Waller. They're going to see guys like, we're going to touch on Higbee, eventually. Like those kind of guys, we're like, I'm going to jump on this guy, Austin Hooper or Jared Cook. I feel like those guys can people are going to think of last year compared to thinking like, okay, like how talented Evan Engram is and what he can really do if he stays on the field for 16 games.
Yeah, I'll gladly. I'll probably be taking a lot of shots on him, to be honest.
Yeah.
If he falls into that late six, same area as Waller, but Waller's probably going to go ahead of him, like you said. So we assume Waller is going to be probably in the 6th, 7th. So Engram might be 7th, 8th. I'll be gladly be taking shots on him. Would I burn a 7th round pick? I'm cool with that. It's not even really one of my starter positions.
Might be able to get him later than that, you know?
Yeah,
You don't
if
think-
you get him 8th,
Depending on how like your draft board is, you know, sometimes you'll see like, okay, like these guys all have tight ends. Like I could wait, you know, and maybe you get him in the 9th, 10th round for some reason.
Because I think you still have the chance of Hunter Henry in some drafts. This isn't every draft, but Hunter Henry I could see going ahead of him in some drafts. Gronk, that's just a name to throw out there where people were going to think the Brady to Gronk thing. You know, people not really thinking, oh, Gronk, we're going to take him, you know, ahead of Evan Engram.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that bum. He's always hurt. That's going to happen. So you could definitely probably get him. You know, when you're playing with average people or, you know, people who are, you know, risk adverse that don't like people who are hurt, you could definitely get him later in some drafts.
Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of weird. I was just looking up his ADP. It's between the 5th and 6th round. It's weird because it says in half PPR format, it's higher, and then but the PPR format it's lower, and it's also lower in non-PPR.
Standard. Yeah, that's weird.
If it's that high up, I might just sit back because I could still get a solid player probably in the 5th, and I don't want to.
sure.
I don't want to put that much risk in the 5th. But
Yeah, you're game on a little bit.
yeah, if we get to, like I said, closer to that 7th, 8th round, I'm cool with that.
All right,
I seen him go in 6th. Sorry, personally, in like a bunch of drafts last year, and this is last year when he was healthy.
yeah.
I think there's always people. I mean, our league is pretty knowledgeable, so I think there's going to be people that will try to jump on him so that people don't get him later. Like, you know, like I want to get him now so that no one else can get him. So sometimes people reach, you know, so that other people can't get him because they want to make sure they get him. You know, they really want to make sure. So I could see him being one of those guys too. Hopefully, you guys slip on him so I can grab him. But something like
Sure.
that.
All right. I'll tell you one guy I'm not going to slip on. Segway. My boy right here.
who?
Number 7.
Stop, dude.
Mike Gesicki.
It's my man.
How did this happen?
I mean, dude, this has been my. I mean, I'm not a Dolphins fan, but I feel like I've coached him and I've just seen him get better without actually saying a word to him or coaching him at all. Yeah, I mean, he's been making that. His rookie year was rough. He got a lot of shit. They're saying he couldn't block at all. Like he wasn't learning the offense. He was just an athlete. And then even this year, the first 8 or 9 games, he was nothing. Like, I mean, the Dolphins weren't really winning much. And then once they made that turn, so I got some stats. I mean, third amongst tight ends in routes run, 11 red zone targets, which finished most for the tight ends, and 8th in the NFL. He was top 12 in all of targets, catches, yards, and touchdowns for tight ends. Excuse me, Jesus. And then the ugly stats was, like AMAC was saying, he had a 22% off target rate, which is horrible. And then he only had a 58% catch rate. So, I mean, it was all over the place. So even on the targets he was getting, a lot of them weren't even catchable balls. They were just throwing it to him. So, and he still managed to have finished the last 6 games, 12 points, 12-point PPR. I mean, he finished strong. I can see him making that Zach Ertz jump when he made that like 3rd or 4th year. That's what I see out of him. Yeah. And he's a number 2 target on his own team behind your boy
Devontae Parker. I mean, one thing about Gesicki is, like I say this, it's kind of tough to gauge him because, I mean, you have Fitzpatrick there. They go get Tua in the draft. I know me and Anthony, we're Dolphins fans. We've personally talked about it a lot of times. Like, we really hope Tua sits for majority of the year, if not the whole year. You know what I'm saying? I think maybe you could throw him in there if we're not going to make the playoffs, like play like a game or two towards the end of the year. But I would really like to see just Fitzpatrick be the quarterback the whole time. Obviously, if Tua comes in halfway through the year, then you know that changes everything. You know, how will Tua throw to him? Is there a certain receiver that Tua favors and whatnot? But I mean, Gesicki, like you're saying, I feel like they didn't draft Gesicki to be a blocking tight end. They drafted him because he's like a freak. I mean, the guy's 6'6", runs a 4.5. So you're talking about like Kenny Galladay type speed, but the guy's 6'6", and he's got a 41-inch vertical. So it's like, who are you going to put on him if you throw a jump ball to him that's going to out rebound him in a sense? You know what I'm saying? You see these tight ends who used to be college basketball players. You know, you got like Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, even Jimmy Graham. You know, these big body guys who can run and stretch the field, and you literally just throw the ball up to them and they go get it. I do think he's still kind of raw, but I mean, yeah, I love Gesicki, and I mean, Anthony, I know you touched on it. I think you posted it on the Instagram. Devontae Parker's first 8 games, he plays a lot of top tier corners.
Yeah.
So could that mean that the door opens for Gesicki maybe to get a couple extra targets?
I don't know because I have a couple problems with. I think I'm almost tougher on Dolphins than I am most players because it's like your own brother. You're like, all right, I'm a little bit harder on you. It also means he's just playing hard defenses in general. And I went back and looked at his numbers last year because I told you I'm looking at these tight ends like who can kind of win me some games. He had 4 games above 51 yards all year long, and not one over 100. And that was the Jets, the Bengals, Washington, and Philly, who were all bad defenses. You look at him against a good defense, the numbers get hideous.
Yeah.
Like it's like 1 for 11, 2 for 9. It's not nice. It's not good. And you talk about him with his jump ball. I mean, 33.3 contested catch rate. That's not very good. Fantasy points per target, 1.53. It's 34th among tight ends. That's not good either. QB rating when targeted, 85.9. That's 31. Target separation, 1.1. There's just a lot of. I can keep going on this, but not a lot of good numbers for Gesicki. He really needs to make a leap on the field, or it's just going to be a volume thing for him to get into the top flow. And if he doesn't do that, I have some worries about what I've seen with him. He needs to make a jump and start performing on the field because it hasn't been pretty so far. And even when we watch the games, I've never seen a game where I'm like, okay, Gesicki took over this game. It's just been like he's made some boneheaded plays or misses, and it's just I want him to be good, but I'm not just going to peg him as a breakout because he hasn't shown it on the field yet, and there are some worrisome things. And we do have a tough defensive schedule, and that worries me when you have a low catch percentage, contested catch rate, all this other things. So I still have him at 10, so I know I'm talking down about him, but I want to look at the negatives, and positives when I'm trying to do it these tight ends because it's kind of hard. So he's still in my top 10, but I can't put him as high as like 6 or 7 just based off if he needs to take a step, which he could. Yeah. And I hope he does. To be honest, I hope he does. I want to see him get to 65, 70%, break away from these receivers more, get a little better in contested catches, be a weapon, but I can't put him there yet.
Do you think he could lead the Dolphins in touchdowns? That was one of the arguments I had where I felt like he could lead the team in total touchdown receptions. So that's obviously, and one thing I looking at these tight ends, if you get 5 touchdowns as a tight end, that's a lot. 5 touchdowns for a tight end is a lot. He had 5 touchdowns last year. So if he can push that number to 8, maybe 9. 9's maybe a lot. But if he can push that number to 8, like that, obviously I think just the touchdowns alone is what makes him a top 10 tight end. Do you think, can you envision him being the touchdown leader for the Dolphins?
I can. I mean, like I said, I like how he finished. I had and another thing I like, obviously the most games you play are division. I have his division stats from last year. He had 20 catches on 30 targets for 205 yards and a touchdown against division. So 66% catch rate, which is a little bit better than, which just kind of goes to show you the progression kind of throughout the season. So I do like that. He had 3 touchdowns his last 2 games, 5 touchdowns his last 6 games. So I think he made those steps going, as the season went on. So, and like I said, I like the division. There's going to be a lot of other, point of emphasis, like Devontae Parker's going to get a lot of love from the defense, So I feel like somebody's going to have to perform. It's going to be him. It's going to be, the running backs. I mean, you have Preston Williams still. So I don't know. I like how the season ended is really why I have him as high as I do. It's really more or less that. And he was one of 11 tight ends last year in standard to average 5 points. I mean, that puts you at tight end 1. That was last year. So I can see. It wouldn't surprise me if he had 7 or 8 touchdowns.
Yeah.
No, and Devontae Parker's never. Last year I
beast.
think was his first year where he was a high touchdown total. 13 games, 11 games for Parker the year before, 2 touchdowns total. So we've only seen. Yeah, he's always struggled with touchdowns. We've only seen it from him for 1 year in the red zone. So I think that's where Gesicki's. If he gets those touchdowns, he could fall closer to where that top 5 or 6 are. If he doesn't, and he doesn't take a growth, he's going to probably be in that range of those 10 to 20 tight ends that all fall within a few points. So, but definitely some upside if he takes that jump. So, you got to like the upside with him too. So that's why he's still in my top, I think 8 or 10 or 9 or 10 for sure.
I will say, we got to say at least other more negative stuff. Chan Gailey is one of the only things that really does worry me. I have too many, it's way too long of an article, but you can go look. It's called, Chan Gailey's history of tight ends may not be good for Mike Gesicki, and it literally goes and it shows basically the usage that he does in every stint that he's had going back to the 90s, whether it's been head coach, offensive coordinator. he's only had one good year, and that was Tony Gonzalez. Like, everything else has been atrocious. Like, 1 year, Safarian Jenkins had 10 catches for like 100 yards. Like,
Yeah, I was looking at the numbers.
10 for 110. Like,
Yep.
it's bad. He doesn't like tight ends. He doesn't really use them. And like Buffalo, 38 catches, 43 catches. Like, he doesn't like to implement his tight ends for whatever reason. He's only had 1,000 yards, and that was Tony G. So
Yeah. Well, one thing I can look at, I was looking at it because Fitzpatrick and Changeli, they had a couple years. Actually, in Buffalo, they had a year
yeah.
or two. And then, but they really had 2 years in New York with the Jets where Fitzpatrick kind of blew up. Those are those years where, you know, Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall just kind of blew up. And I was looking at, how, you know, the tight end usage in those offenses. But, I mean, they had no tight end. They had Brian Cumberland, who was primarily a blocking tight end.
Bum.
They did have Austin Safari Jenkins, but he got injured after like 3 or 4 weeks. So then they went back to Brian Cumberland, who's obviously not a good receiving tight end here. Basically, what I see Gesicki being is like the Eric Decker of this Changeli offense in a sense, you know, like Devontae Parker will be the Brandon Marshall and Gesicki will be the his no
that's
neck.
how I feel. Let's go.
But we'll see, because that is a factor. And like I said, we did see how, you know, just for example, OJ Howard with the Bucs, we learned Arians doesn't really incorporate the tight ends. So we saw OJ Howard, he wasn't really incorporated, in that Arians offense. But to your point, you said the one tight end who really performed was Tony Gonzalez, former basketball player. Obviously, Tony Gonzalez is a Hall of Famer. And Gesicki's not even close to that. But I'm just saying, a guy
skill
like
set.
We see it right there, on the highlight, jump ball, goes up and gets it. So we'll see. He'll be an intriguing guy right there. I guess maybe he's one of the most like boom or bust kind of tight ends.
But I mean, I don't mind taking a chance on him. You get in the 9th, 10th round.
He can help you like win your
I'm
league
cool with
if he makes that step and you get him in exactly 9th or 10th. You get you a top 5-6 tight end that late. I mean, your team, you could probably trade the tight end that you initially wanted to start with. You know, because some people can take him as like their second.
Yeah.
You're like a Kelce and a him or a Kittle and a him. I mean, that's if you want.
For sure. All right, jumping to the next guy right here at number 8. We got Hunter Henry from the Los Angeles Chargers. I think that's the first time I've ever said Los Angeles Chargers and not San Diego Chargers.
Los Angeles.
I don't know if I've ever not said San Diego.
I know.
Sometimes when I'm looking for stats, I'm like, I'll be looking, I'm like, dude, where the fuck are the San Diego Chargers? I can't find them. And then I'm like, oh yeah, they're the LA Chargers.
Yeah.
Because I'll look through sheets and I'll always go straight to SD.
Yeah.
And I can't find SD. So I'm like looking between like Seattle and San Francisco and I'm like, dude, where? Oh yeah, LA.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Dude, you know, because you're just better.
Yeah, where's your list at?
You're just better.
It's behind yours. I can't get it to show up.
Oh, for sure. All right, so Hunter Henry, another guy where I feel like it was kind of hard to stat him out. I think, Anthony, you said it at the top of the episode. I mean, once you get past these first, 4 guys, maybe 5 guys, it's like
I'm not gonna,
these next couple guys, it's like I feel like it's a crapshoot where they can really finish. But Hunter Henry comes in, I think, what is it, 8 for the overall? And then, so yeah, it's just hard to gauge on him because, you know, you don't got Rivers there anymore. Obviously, Rivers loved using the tight end. I mean, they go out and draft Justin Herbert. You still got Tyrod Taylor there. I mean, I personally think Herbert starts from day one. I think Tyrod Taylor's.
So?
Yeah, I think
he gets
I think,
Baker Mayfield again.
Yeah, or at least first 4 games tops. You know, I think Herbert plays 75% of the season.
He gets hurt.
Herbert, dude.
I mean, but what's your guys' views on Hunter Henry? We all had him.
I like him better if Tyrod isn't there.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I think. I have him lower because it's, where do I have him, Mike? Where is Mr. Henry?
You have him at 8. So you got him right there, 8.
You have them where we have them in the consensus.
Yeah. All right. So I'm guessing with everybody else. But what I was talking to Mike about this off air is Tyrod Taylor, when he's running the offense, on average, he throws the ball. This is why I don't like anyone as long as Tyrod Taylor is. I don't like Keenan Allen. I don't want Mike Williams. I'll take Austin Eckler. I won't take Hunter Henry to an extent. Is because he throws the ball on average 27 times a game to 28. That's almost 10 times less than they were averaging with Phillip Rivers. So that's 10 targets less a game to go around. That leads to very inconsistent games and very inconsistent numbers. Now, if you tell me Tyrod's not going to be the starter, that's going to change some stuff. Or if I know that he's going to be on a short lease, that changes some stuff. But, I mean, they still have a pretty good defense. They do have a good, almost 1, 2, 3 punch, it seems like, with running backs. They do have Austin Eckler. And I did like what Justin Jackson did on the field last year as a running back, too. I think they could defense and run and potentially win some games, and that scares me because it might not be he's pulled like the Browns last year, sort of like 1-4, 0-4, something like that.
Yeah,
if they start 3-2 or 2-2, I don't think he's going to get pulled off the field yet. So I think that leash could go a little longer than we anticipate. So that's where I'm worried with Hunter Henry. I mean, if you break down 27 targets, you give, I think it was like 60% of that to the receivers. It leaves like 8 to 10 for the tight ends and running backs, and it's like, You're going to tell me Austin Eckler's not going to get 4 or 5 targets a game? So you're looking at it just gets a little sketchy with Tyrod there.
Yeah.
I can't like I'm not even comfortable with him at 8 to be honest.
8,
But I only have him there because I could see something happening with Herbert coming in and the offense going more up past tempo, not 27 passing games. Maybe they're passing 34 to 35, and that can change that whole scenario. And we've seen him be a top 5 tight end in the field, so we've seen him do it.
Yeah.
Versus what I will say
he's a
with some
good
of these
athlete.
guys too. So
I think your Herbert will come in by like week 5. I bet.
yeah, I assume. I just
If I
don't
had to
know.
guess.
I don't even know where I have him at. 8? You had him at 8. I have him at 10.
7.
11.
You have him at. Oh no, wait. Oh yeah, 11.
I could see me moving him up. I mean, so the reason I was skeptical is just because Phillip Rivers left. But I actually remember because I had him like 2 of those years. Charles Clay was all right when Tyrod was there. So I went to look just to make sure, and he was all right. So the 3 years that Tyrod started, Charles Clay was 51 for 528 and 3 touchdowns, 57 for 550 and 4 touchdowns, 49 for 558 and 2 touchdowns. So it's not that bad. I mean, and that was like with a bad offense with no other weapons. So, I mean, he kind of does like to use the tight end to an extent. It's just it's a different offense. So I'm curious how that's going to work. But I mean, how many touchdowns is that? That's 9 touchdowns in 3 years, and I'd like to think that Hunter Henry's better than Charles Clay. So that's the only thing that worries me. I want to see how the offense looks as far as like cohesiveness and stuff like that.
I don't think Buffalo at the same time had an elite passing running back option at that same time.
No, that's what I'm saying. So I'm curious just how maybe all those options will help and he'll still use a tight end. I'm just curious what they're going to want him to do with the offense.
Yeah.
Like, because obviously that offense was geared toward get your one of your only athletes open, which was Charles Clay. So I'm just curious how they're going to use it now. But
Don't forget about Robert Woods.
Well, maybe it's like he wasn't that good over there though.
I
But,
know it wasn't.
Right?
Buffalo had like some good receivers. That got
fuck yeah, him and then they lost Marshawn too. But so I think just as far as the weapons, I think maybe it's like an instinctive thing where maybe he looks for the tight end, and maybe that's what we'll find out. I guess is what he likes, like how he likes his reads and shit like that. So
Yeah, he was one of the hardest guys for me to gauge. Like I think I had him pretty high at first, and then I brought him down to like 12, and then like I brought him to I think what happened 9. Then I even thought about taking him out of my rankings.
Yeah, he was
completely.
hard.
I was just like, you know what? It's just like you said. There's Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler. It's like, what is he the 4th option? At the best potentially. Red zone. I mean, who knows? So yeah, he's one of those tricky guys right there. Maybe a guy I probably won't be taking in any drafts just because there's so many question marks that maybe I'll be willing to take like a more consistent guy. I don't want too many question marks. Basically, what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's tough with the.
He's tough, and he gets hurt too. So it's he missed that whole year, and then last year he came back. But when he came back last year, he was balling. But that's Phillip Rivers though.
Yeah,
like, Phillip Rivers was feeding him the rock. So it's.
Yeah. And then you could play the narrative where it's like I really want to look this up and see if it's true because it's said a lot that the tight end is like the rookie's best friend because it's like I don't know if it's just if they have a really good tight end or if it's actually a narrative. So I kind of want to dig. It's gonna take me a while to dig into it because there's a lot of looking into it. I have to look at different teams, different situations. But you can play that narrative. He does have a talented tight end, so maybe it is a bump if we get the rookie in there right off the bat.
And I mean, he played 12 games and finished standard 8, PPR 9. So the talent's there. It's just a matter of how they use him. With the whole usage thing with that offense, but.
For sure. All right, we'll jump into the next guy here at number 9. We got Tyler Higbee from the Los Angeles Rams. We go back-to-back Los Angeles players. Nice.
That's kind of hard.
All right, so Higbee, you guys had Higbee ranked both. I did not have Higbee ranked.
Really? I see you.
Yeah.
I see you.
I mean, like
Sorry,
You guys want to say why? Maybe I'll be the contrarian. You guys want to go first? Why you guys put Higbee in your top 12?
Dre, you have him at 10. And
I think the offense is going to change. I really do think you're not going to see the 11 personnel as consistent as you used to see it. Do I think it's going to go full flip to the way it was for that back half of the year? No, I don't. But do I think it's going to be somewhere in between there? I do think it's going to be somewhere in between there. I think he did it. There is some bust potential with him for sure. 100%. But I mean, you give me someone, we're talking boomer bust guys, you go him versus Gesicki. The dude put up 4 or 500 yard games
in a row.
We haven't even seen Gesicki do it once. So it's like and some of these other guys we can get deeper, or maybe they've had one game where they had 100 yard, but it's like, I mean, for the dude to just flash that, whether it's a flash or not, I'm going to take the chance because that's a league winning type of tight end.
Yeah.
Maybe like I said, I don't think they're going to be 11 personnel. I'm burying Cooper Kupp slowly but surely in my rankings. The more I look at that offense and statistics and all that. And like I said, I think that just kind of goes to where the Rams are going as an offense. They made an adjustment, and you saw him take over games, win games. I think I played him when he basically single-handedly took me out one league in the playoffs. So it was like, I'll take the chance on that upside when we're getting into the 7th through 10th tight end. That maybe that wasn't just a fluke last year, and it was something. You saw Kittle before he broke out. There was like a 5-6. He didn't have these 100-yard games, but we saw there was a stretch where I was like mad that because I looked at it and I was like, oh, this guy showed a lot of upside right here, and I didn't chase it the next year, and then he broke out. It's like same scenario. He showed that upside, so why not give it a shot? And I'll probably take the chance on Higbee. I like to win the league. I don't want to lose, so I'll go after players that are going to score the most points.
Yeah, he was like a target monster at the end of the year for sure.
I don't want to lose. Who wants to lose?
Well, I don't necessarily take safe picks all the time because it's like, what's the point of getting someone who's going to catch me? I want to take like those.
Almost.
Yeah, I'll take last, but I'll take first.
Yeah, right.
Dre, what is it about Higbee that you like?
I mean, just the upside, like what he was alluding to. Like he showed it's tough to beat. To be that good or even get 100 yards, in the NFL like that. It's not, like you said, a lot of tight ends don't do it like that, and he did it consistently. Granted, I looked at his targets the last 5 games, and it was 8, 11, 14, 11, and 12. So that's a shit ton of targets.
It's a lot of targets.
Yeah, but he had 107, 116, 111, 104, 84. So he did what he made work with what he had. So that's obviously going to fall. You're not getting 11 targets a game as a tight end. He does have Gerald Everett there. That's what worries me because I do like him still. But like Anthony said, he's more of a late round guy who can help you win a league for sure. Put your team over the top. So
yeah,
why not?
For me, this is one of my biggest bust alerts. I just don't think that a 4 or 5 game sample size justifies him to be automatically a top 10 tight end. In 63 career games, he's only gone over 60 yards 7 times. Obviously, 4 of those were just that one year. 5 of them were in those last 5 weeks of the year. 56 games under 60 receiving yards. Obviously, Gerald Everett's been there, and then you have the 3 wide receiver sets with Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks, and Robert Woods in the past. So obviously that affects him as well. But like you're saying, those crazy targets he was getting weeks 13 through 14, 56 targets. Cooper Kupp only 30. I just can't imagine a scenario where Higbee is going to out-target Cooper Kupp through a full 16-game pace period. And even with those 56 targets, only 2 touchdowns. A lot of yardage, obviously. 100 plus, averaged 104 yards during those games, but only 2 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp, even with the 30 targets, 5 touchdowns. I still think that's that's Goff's go-to guy when he needs to make a play. And Anthony, I know you can agree with this one. You're actually the one who mentioned this and actually taught this to me, was the tight end to running back correlations in terms of targets. So 2017, 88 total targets for the tight end position. Running backs 101, so the running backs obviously more. 2018, 85 total targets for the tight ends. 97 for the running backs, so running backs more obviously again. 2019, 157 targets to the tight end position, nearly doubled from the previous 2 years. And the running backs position, 62 targets only. Obviously, Gurley wasn't himself. He was sort of injured, the knee management, whatever you want to call it. So I can't imagine a scenario where they go out and they get Cam Akers with them being as high as they are in Cam Akers. You even said there was reports, Dre, where they wanted to trade up to get him. Luckily for them, he kind of fell right into their lap. So I would like to think those running back targets will go up, and maybe they'll push like that 101 to 97 barrier. Let's just say 90. You know what I'm saying? And those tight end targets will come back down. And then, like I said, I just can't imagine a scenario where Higbee outpaces in terms of targets Cooper Kupp for a full 16-game slate. I do agree. I think this offense is changing, though. I think they are going to move away from this 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets to more of a traditional kind of 2 tight end set, maybe, because they still have Gerald Everett. He's still on the team.
Yeah, he's an athlete too. So
yeah. Those numbers the years before that was a different offense. It was a complete different offense when it was down to 62 and 157. So just I don't know what we're going to see yet. I don't know if we're going to see back to 11. I think you're going to see in the middle. So I don't, like Dre said, I don't think he's going to outpace Cooper Kupp. I don't think he's going to see 11, 14, 11 total targets a game. But you give me a tight end that can take over games, and I think he showed enough to maybe even kind of push Gerald Everett to the side in a sense, because Gerald Everett had some shots while he was out. He did okay.
He did all right. He had a couple of weeks,
he was showing game-breaking ability. So, Robert Woods does what he does. Cooper Kupp, he's got to get better against man, but it's been 3 straight years and he hasn't been able to do that. So if he's not able to do that again for the 4th year, what is it, 4th year?
Yeah.
Who these targets need to go somewhere if he struggles again. Like Cooper Kupp's man issues are a real issue, and it's so if he's gonna play, if it's not gonna be him, it's gonna be Justin Jefferson, right? Or not Jefferson.
They have Josh Reynolds and Van Jefferson.
Van Jefferson, that's
Jefferson,
right.
yeah.
You know, if he's going to be on the outside, that might help Cooper Kupp. And if they're going back to 3 wide receiver sets, but if they're not, you know, those 2 wide receiver, those, you know, 2 tight end sets. I mean, I could see 80, 90 targets. So I'm not projecting like nowhere near my projecting 11, 8, 14, but. You know, if there's one receiver getting open on certain plays, who's going to be the next option if Kupp can't do it?
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's why we have him where we have him, you know, on the lower end of the list, you know. That's why he's at. Well, I mean, on our list,
I don't think he'll finish as a top 10 tight end.
Mike had him, right? Mike, on your list. I'm looking at your list. Right?
I had him at what? No, that's
the consensus.
the consensus.
Dickhead, I'm
But he
kidding.
does definitely have some
mine's
bust
right,
potential.
mine's right behind it.
I was trying to help you out, Mike, with your list issues, but you just.
I mean, all these guys have bust
ruined it.
potential.
Crying
For sure.
Yeah.
The tight end
It's
position
like-
is tricky. That's for
He's
sure.
like, where I don't see my list.
I just
right?
don't like it. I'm a guy where it's like, okay, like I'm not gonna gamble a 5-game sample size where your best players, like, you know, Gurley obviously wasn't there, so you bring in Cam Akers. He's obviously better than Higbee. Cooper Kupp, you know, obviously he didn't get the targets, but he's better than Higbee as a football player. You know, I'm just trying to gauge a 5-game sample size where you know, these other players, they should emerge and be more focal points in the offense and not just Higbee. I mean, I don't even know if Gronk has had 4 straight 100+ yard games, and Gronk has been a dominant tight end for a future Hall of Famer. So we'll see what happens right there with that one. We got number 10 right here, Austin Hooper from the Browns. No longer a Falcon. Austin Hooper is on the Browns.
Poopa Scoopa?
The Poopa Scoopa.
You have him at 11, Tyler. We got him at 9 with Dre.
Mike had him at 9.5.
I had him at 9.5.
Get
And
him.
Anthony, where he did not have him. I
unranked.
actually kind of agree with Anthony here. But go ahead. Take it away, boys.
Yeah, so Austin Hooper at 11. I mean, like I said, when you get to these last couple tight ends, no, wait, we have 10, my bad. I have him at 11. What's the consensus? 10? Oh, okay, yeah, it's 10. Yeah, this one's tough because, you know, he goes from a pass-heavy offense in Atlanta to an offense where, you know, I'm pretty high on Baker Mayfield. I think he actually has a better year than he did last year. But, I mean, how good can it be? I mean, do they really lean on the run game? You know, they get, you know, Jedrick Willis to tackle, Jack Conklin the right tackle, so really boost that offensive line. I mean, you still got OBJ, Jarvis Landry, still got Njoku. They exercised the 5th option on him. Kareem Hunt out of the backfield. So it's like, how many targets can Hooper get? I mean, what's your thoughts? Anthony, you don't have him ranked. I struggled with him. He was all over the place as well. Like, I think at first I just kind of, you know, spitballing things. I think I had him at like 5 or 6, and then I dropped him down to like 12, and then I brought him, like, I actually was about to put him out of my top 12. But then I was just like, oh, man, the guy's super talented. They go out and trade him. You know how I am when you go out and trade somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it about him that you don't have him ranked?
Target share.
Yeah.
I struggle with the target share for him. He's someone I don't even see a lot of upside.
Yeah.
We can go. You know, we've talked about these other guys. You know, whether you like him, not like him, the ups and downs. We're going to talk about ups and downs with all these guys. But like, he's someone where I don't even see a lot of upside. I think Dre's kind of on my side of where the offense is heading. I think it's going to be run heavy, a lot more run heavy than we've seen them. They were 10th in the league in pass attempts last year, and I see that going down. I'm not too big on Baker Mayfield. Like I said, I think it's more of a run-heavy approach. I think those attempts come down. They try and play more defense. Last year you saw I think they were the Minnesota Vikings number 1 or number 2 in rushing attempts? Talking to the offensive coordinator. They were up there in top 3.
Oh, here. I can tell you. They were 4th. They had 476 rushing attempts.
Yeah,
last year,
so
the
I
Vikings.
think it's going to be a
The Browns, is that what we said?
No, but Stefanski was.
Oh, okay.
He's the new.
He's the
He's
new-
calling the plays. He's calling the plays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I allude to. I think this is going to be a lot more run-heavy offense. I think those pass attempts come down. Who are the 2 divas you got to feed on the wide receiver position?
OBJ and Landry for sure.
They have to get theirs, or this is going to be a nightmare scenario for the team. So if you're not going to give them theirs, you're going to have some issues. They do pass. His system did pass to the running back a lot. I think the Vikings last year they were top 5 in percentage passes to the running back, so that could even take away from the tight end. Not that we still have David Njoku there, so I'm like, how many targets can he get? I just don't like the upside. I think it was more if they went out and got him because he's an all-around tight end and he helps them from a football standpoint. He
He's a
could
good
block.
blocker.
They could help him, 2 tight end sets with him and Njoku. And I think it was a good football move for the Cleveland Browns. But when it comes to fantasy football, I think it was terrible from what standpoint from when we saw Austin Hooper last year to this year. And I'm struggling to give him like a a solid amount of targets. Like I really am. I just think that target share is not going to be as high as I'd like for him.
Yeah, I mean, last 2 years, 97 targets and 88 targets. I mean, it is kind of hard to imagine a scenario where he repeats that when you have Landry and OBJ who should push at least 120, 125 targets each, minimum, you would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, with me, I have him low because I'm just torn as far as because he was extremely productive. So you guys were, throwing your stats out. I looked up before he got hurt last year. I remember he was a top. They said he was a top 10. If he was a wide receiver, he'd be top 10. Yeah. So I went to go look. He had 52 catches for 591 and 5 touchdowns, and that's through 8 games.
Yeah. I think it's just a difference in the. I mean, I think if he stayed on the Falcons, you could arguably say, okay, like he's a top 5 tight end because he's finished as the tight end 6 back-to-back years. And I mean, and like I said, with Matty Ice in that offense, where I feel like they are a gunslinging offense, the Atlanta Falcons, I think it's obviously he can get it done. I think it's like Anthony said, you're switching different systems, and you alluded to how do you say his name? Stefanski.
Hey, Stefanski.
They
like to run the ball, right?
Yeah, they like to run it. It's just they paid him a lot of money to go there. That's why I'm just like, when they didn't need to. That's why I'm just so confused. Like they have the tight end, and then they drafted another one. So that's why I have him where I wanted to put him higher, but like we said, the offense and where he's at, I almost see him as like a poor man's George Kittle. Like he does everything Kittle does, just like not as good. He blocks good. He's not as fast, but he can catch. He's good at all facets of the game, but.
He can jump people.
Yeah, it's just the offense. That's why I would like to put him higher, but like you said, OBJ and Landry just can't do it.
It's nothing against the player.
Yeah.
Like you said, if he was in the Falcons still, he'd be at least top 6.
Dude, he was
at very least. Yeah, at very least. So it's nothing against the player. It's just I'm struggling with that target share. I like to give him I'm struggling to give him above like 70, 60.
And what's funny, he's been sneaky productive too. Like every year he's made like good. I was telling my boy before this year started, it was funny. We made like a little friendly bet. I was like, I think I'm going to take Hooper in one of my leagues. And he's like, I don't like him. And then I just like sent him these numbers. I was like, who's that? He's like, he's pretty good. I was like, those are Hooper's numbers like year by year. He's like, damn. He's like one of those players like he's sneaky productive. Like even when he's on the field and healthy. But like we said, it's just a matter of what they're going to do with him. But I mean,
yeah, he was like I think he was like number. I made this thing where I like blacked him out and make him look like a monster, and I was like, "Who's the number 5 tight end?" And like targets or receptions, like before the last season, and it was Austin Hooper, and it was like when you went back and looked at the season in total, you're like, "Damn, he had that many targets and receptions."
Yeah.
And then he had that year where he was like the tight end like 1 or 2 or what was it 2 over that stretch before he got hurt?
He was the tight end one.
No, he was
in PPR at least full point PPR. He was the tight end one before he went down.
Yeah, and that's why I read he was a wide receiver. He would have been a wide receiver 7 or 8 that. So he was balling though.
Yeah, I mean talent. I mean it's there. It's the opportunity.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
And he's been productive. I mean he had 19 catches as a rookie, then 49, then 71, then 75. So if he can get you 70 catches, I mean that's going to be tough with this offense. But
now if OBJ gets hurt again, the upside goes up.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, if OBJ gets hurt,
or if somebody gets hurt.
He's going to be one of those guys where I feel like, okay, like I said, he's finished tight end 6 the last 2 years. So, like, in people's minds, they're thinking, oh, Austin Hooper, he's good. Oh, he's going to the Browns. They do have Odell. They do have Landry and Baker. Like, this he's going to be so good on this offense. But they're not thinking about the target share. They're not thinking about how this could be like a run heavy offense, or at least like a 50-50 run pass split offense right here. So I think he'll be a guy where he goes ahead of guys like, I mean, potentially like an Evan Engram or a Gesicki or like a Hunter Henry. He could be like the 5th tight end drafted off the board in a lot of leagues just off of his like the name of like what he's done in the past. But where he'll like finish at the end of the year, I'm struggling to have him in my top 10. I think I'm at 10 right now, but I'm struggling. Well, I'm at 11. I think I'm struggling to get him in like to the top 10.
Yeah. I'm hoping he's like a beneficiary of the play action, because they are such a run heavy team that once they get, people collapsing in the box, he can kind of, do that leak out. But
for sure. All right, we jump into the next guy right here, kind of his replacement for the Atlanta Falcons. You got Hayden Hurst.
Go ahead, T.
I do like Hayden Hurst. I think this guy's going to be a name that obviously probably a lot of people don't know about, because he hasn't really done much over there with the Ravens. Obviously, not the most pass-happy team, and then you got Mark Andrews right there. But don't forget that Hayden Hurst 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever it was, he was the number 1 tight end drafted in the draft, the only tight end to go in the first round of the NFL draft. I mean, the measurables compared to him and Austin Hooper are like the same, like height-wise, 40-wise, it's all the same across the board. And just the one thing I like about him is kind of you're saying how you didn't like Hooper because, he's going from one offense, the Falcons, to the Browns offense now. But now you're throwing Hurst in there to kind of just slide right in to play that Hooper role. I mean, like I just said, the last 2 years, Hooper finished as the tight end 6, 70-plus receptions, 650-plus receiving yards for Hooper in both those years. And that, like I said, this is one of the most happiest offenses right here. So, I mean, Austin Hooper got 88 targets and 97 targets. So I'm thinking Hayden Hurst can kind of slide in and get around 90 targets and be that Austin Hooper 2.0 right here. And, even 90 targets is still a lot for a tight end. And that was still with the wide receivers as a whole, seeing 400 total targets. I mean, Calvin Ridley, I think we're all pretty hyped on Calvin Ridley to have a boom year here and explode. But Calvin Ridley's had 90-plus targets in all those years as well. So he's still getting his. I just love Hayden Hurst. I think he's going to be one of these sleeper guys where he comes out of nowhere, where he's going to go undrafted in a lot of leagues. And, after week 1, on waiver wire, he's going to be a guy who's over 50% available, but he came out and had some crazy game, like 5 catches, 86 yards on a touchdown. And people are going to be like, oh, who's Hayden Hurst? And it's going to be like, yo, we've been telling you about Hayden Hurst since May or June.
Or
I
April.
love it.
Or March.
You're selling me, dude. I want every bit of Hayden Hurst now.
Yeah, so Hayden Hurst, I mean, I agree with everything you said. Like I said, I like to look at negatives and positives. The negative, he was the 3rd string tight end on his team, so he basically couldn't beat out the other 2 tight ends who were drafted behind him. So I don't look at him as a first-round talent anymore because you basically weren't on the field. Yeah. So I just I don't really care where you're drafted and what your measurables are. I care about what you do on the field. With that said, opportunity is there. So now, I kind of think I'm a little bit lower on him, and I do kind of want to move into my top 12. I'd rather actually, in the PPR, I'd probably rather go him over Jared Cook. In a standard, I'd rather flip those, maybe go Jared Cook. But with that said, I mean, I don't think he's going to reach that 190 target mark. I'm kind of seeing him more in the 80-ish to 75. Now it comes down to what does he do with it? Is he efficient with it? Is he not efficient to it? That's where I think it's going to make or break his season. If he's efficient with it, I think he's going to be a hands down top 12 tight end. If he's inefficient with it, I think he's going to be looking more in the. I think he's pretty much still almost a top 15 based just off of volume alone. But if he's inefficient with it, you could see some games where it's that tight end. But like I said, it does come down to him at this point because the opportunity is 100% there. Atlanta will use a tight end. Julio Jones is going to get him. I'm probably extra moist for Calvin Ridley this year. But he still has a lot of opportunity. I'd actually take him over Hooper, who was, his replacement going to Cleveland. I'd actually take Hayden Hurst over Hooper if I had to choose between the two. So opportunity is there. It just comes down to him. Like, is he going to do it? And if he does, he's going to be a solid tight end this year. If he doesn't, you could drop him.
Yeah.
And pick up another one.
I mean, one thing I could say, you're saying he was kind of like the 3rd string tight end for his team. I mean, maybe he just didn't fit that offensive scheme kind of better, as good as. I mean, obviously, we see how good Mark Andrews is. I mean, we all have him top 5. And, and obviously, Mark Andrews, he looks like one of the better young tight ends in the league coming up. Yeah. But it's just weird. I don't know, randomly, while I think maybe I was on Instagram or something, but I was scrolling and I think they're talking about mental awareness and stuff like that, mental health awareness and stuff like that. And Hayden Hurst came out and said something how he struggled with a lot of mental health issues, but he kept it to himself. He didn't really want to say anything like that. Kind of makes me think of Kevin Love almost. He came out and said, a lot of mental health things, people, they keep it to themselves. They've been battling with themselves. So he was actually saying how he went to go get help for that, and he feels a lot better personally. And he said it was kind of stunning his confidence to go out there and play. So, I mean, maybe I think I'm one of the maybe. I don't want to say I'm one of the only people, but I do honestly really think of the mental aspect of being out there on the football field and what you're going through in your personal life. If my personal life, I'm not at my best, how can I go out on the football field and perform to my top ability?
It's always on your mind.
We'll see if maybe he obviously, like I said, he personally came out and said he's got some help mentally and he feels the best that he's felt since he's been in the league. We'll see if that happens. I mean, Dre, what do you feel about him?
I mean, I don't like him as much as you guys do, but I do. I mean, as a football player, I mean, I know this is fantasy, but I think this is a whole change as far as also for the Ravens, where they're maybe going away from the 2 tight ends because he's a good blocker also. It's just a case of there's just someone that's a lot better than him, so they had to ship him off. And I like that the Falcons traded for him. I always just like when teams trade to get players. that means that they want to utilize him, and their backup isn't that great. He played a little bit last year. I forgot his name. The dude with the long hair. I know I should know his name. Talking about it, but
For the Falcons or for?
yeah, the dude who played when Hooper got hurt. He did okay,
It was
but
Logan Paulson and Eric Subert.
Hurst is a better athlete. I mean, he's a bigger body. They did need help on the O-line. So like I said, he is a good blocker, so he can do that for him. But I mean, he's gonna get the opportunity, and he doesn't have as much tread, on his tires per se, as far as like being on the field because of Andrew. So he's still fresh. I mean, he was an older rookie. I want to say he was like 24 when he got drafted, 23 or 24. So 26 with not that much tread. I think he's still pretty fresh, and he's going to a situation where he's wanted, and there's a lot of opportunity. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he's top 10. Like he could be the Darren. He could be like the Darren Waller of this year, like the guy who comes out of nowhere and kind of does his thing.
I think what it is, I've just followed him since his rookie year coming in, and I thought that he would be the tight end to emerge in Baltimore. Obviously, Andrews kind of came out.
South Carolina.
South Carolina, right? But I don't know. I think I'm probably going to be really high on this guy compared to a lot of people, and I think he's going to be a guy, like I said, where he goes undrafted, or you're getting him in like the 12th, 13th round because people don't really know who Hayden Hurst is and whatnot. But I think he's going to slide right into that Austin Hooper role, and he's going to put up really similar numbers compared to what Austin Hooper was. And like I said, that's still with Julio Jones eating and Calvin Ridley eating over there as well. I mean, you guys want to do like a beer bet?
I was just about to I was going to say 70.
Maybe.
70 catches. Does he
I'm
have more
thinking
than
like
Waller?
overall, like I was gonna say personally, I was gonna say Hurst will finish better than Higbee.
Hurst better than Higbee? I mean,
It's
I'll do that. I'll beer bet you for the sake.
It could happen.
No, we could do that.
Yeah.
You want to do, I mean.
Just because you guys both had Higbee ranked, I didn't. And,
Okay.
I was like the contrarian.
It wouldn't
on
surprise
Higbee,
me if he
and
finished.
Okay, then we got to do
Higbee,
one where
but
there's where someone would mind. How about, do you think Hayden Hurst can do better than, I mean, if you said Hunter Henry, that wouldn't really matter. Evan Engram?
Where did I have Hayden Hurst at, Mike?
like
2?
7. I had him at 7. All right.
Never went in his
You
heart,
just say
though.
that. All right. Well, just maybe let's say this. I think Hayden Hurst will be a top 8 tight end.
Well, okay, actually, perfect. Darren Waller, look, you have him higher. You want to do Darren Waller?
I guess. Fuck it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. If he said no, it would have been like, shit. I mean, 70 catches? We could do that. You want to do who has more catches?
I was gonna say Hayden Hurst will finish as a top 8 tight end. Is that one more?
Okay, we can. All right, that's fine. Because I mean, you're the only one that had him, and on top of that, you had him at 7. So I mean, we could do that top 8 for the sake of
it's
sakeness.
really possible.
Kevin Garnett will tell
he
you
could
anything
easily
is
get
possible.
85 targets. He scores 5 touchdowns. He's probably a top 8 tight end.
Well, you're right.
Like
but-
I said, it comes down to him.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know if I believe in the talent yet, but it could be there, and the opportunity is there. So it's 100%. Like I'm not going to argue it.
For sure.
all right, well,
maybe
I'll
we'll
bet
save
you.
it. We'll save
I'll
it.
bet you, T.
All right.
There it is.
All
I
right,
definitely was a
Mike,
beer bet.
write that down.
Tap.
Put it on the board. What did we do? Top 8?
Top 8.
So top 8. I'll
8
write it
to
down.
push.
For sure. All right, we jump into the last guy on the consensus rankings, on the early consensus rankings. So let me just clarify
Really?
that so people don't get.
Good.
Should have
irate
clarified
and
that on
frustrated,
Travis
yeah.
Kelce.
Yeah.
Fantasy football rankings too, because some people will
Yeah,
be like,
fantasy
"Oh,
football
dude, what the
rankings.
fuck?"
Yeah.
These
it's
are
like,
fantasy football.
relax.
They'll see Josh Allen up there. They'll be like, "Dude, how do you have him like, dude, it's fantasy football? He runs for like 500 yards and 9 touchdowns."
We got a
Chill out.
recent comment actually like yesterday on the quarterback rankings about like Kyler Murray and Josh Allen being over Russ Wilson. Like, oh, I might have to unfollow because it's like okay,
Because what?
because Russell Wilson was below.
Because they're a Seahawks fan.
Right, exactly. That's actually Exactly.
I mean, I feel like we had them all
It's
right
like,
next
what
to each other.
quarterback am I? Do I want? I want Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
What fantasy wise? I still think Russell
I was
Wilson
gonna
could
say,
be
I
better
feel like-
than both those guys.
I feel like
Yeah.
we'll tell him,
I think I have Russell Wilson ahead of both of them.
well,
Yeah. That guy's a Seahawks fan, and he's bitter, and that's why.
Yeah.
it was a girl, but yeah, she was a Seahawks fan.
Well, you know what? That's even funnier. Bless her heart.
For sure. I will wrap this top 12 list up. We got Jared Cook from the New Orleans Saints. Finished as a tight end 7 last year. He was one of those guys, like I said again, where like I feel like I struggled with putting him in, and then he was out, he was in, and then I was kind of just like, you know what, it's good offense. I'll just throw him in there at 12.
Did you guys both have him?
I had him at 12.
Yes.
Anthony had him at 12.
I don't sound like
and then-
excited, but
all right.
yes.
Well, here, let me go first for the sake of that I didn't, and then y'all can just do your thing.
Yeah.
Trust me, I don't have much on why I didn't, so it's okay.
I don't have much.
Well,
on
no,
why
it's honestly,
I
I
don't
mean,
have much on why I did. So.
He's one of those, like, it's not you, it's me. Like, I just didn't pick you. Like, I just like other tight ends, other tight ends more than him, I guess. So, like you said, he was productive with the Raiders. He did his thing. He's in a good situation. He's one of those where, like, you're like, I don't like Waller as much because of Derek Carr, where it's like, he's like, Drew Brees is the only reason I like Jared Cook.
Oh yeah.
But it's just, they got Emmanuel Sanders. The usage with Kamara, I just feel like they didn't use him enough last year. So I
Hurt
think,
for a lot of the year.
yeah. So I just feel like they're going to do more him, more Emmanuel Sanders. They finally got a good number 2. So I just feel like that's probably why. And I'm not saying their offense isn't going to be good still, but the Bucs, they play the Bucs twice. Their D's actually pretty damn good too. So just usage is probably why. And I like other tight ends more. It's just,
Yeah, I don't know. He's someone who's
and he
like,
looks like an alien. He's crazy sometimes.
he is pretty ugly. I was saying that to Mike. I was like, dude, Jared Cook's pretty.
He's first team all ugly. No disrespect.
You ever seen?
Bro, you're just
side note,
dissing
you ever,
Jared Cook.
you ever seen?
Don't
He's like,
fucking
you know what?
loop
Screw
me
these
in
guys.
here.
You
Don't
ever
put me
seen,
in
Come
here.
on, Mike was good.
You ever seen the he's on like the Howard Stern show is what makes me think of him. He's like a little black midget guy. He's got, I think he's got like
You're talking about Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice, yeah.
Oh
He's a
my
guy.
god, bro!
when
If
they-
you put Beetlejuice's face and Jared Cook's face, it looks like
That's so
Jared
fucked up.
Cook's son.
Stop.
Hey, no, actually, and I have the perfect picture. Go into you guys seen the movie Scary Movie 2?
Yeah.
Where they
Yeah.
cut Shorty's brain
That's
open, and he's.
Beetlejuice. That's Beetlejuice. That's that guy.
I know. What I was gonna say
Oh,
was when
sorry,
you
sorry.
cut his head open, it's a perfect picture because he looks up and it's like he looks just like Jared Cook. He's like, "What's up, son?" And
No,
you
he
can
goes
see
like
how
this.
ugly he
No,
is.
he goes, "What's up?" And he goes, he's like, he goes, "This y'all brain on drugs."
He really looks just like him though.
That's so funny.
That is, I quote that part of that movie all the time, and nobody knows what I'm talking about.
It's one of the best parts. He's like drooling, and yeah. So,
This
anyways,
y'all brain on. No, this is what he does. He goes, "This y'all brain on drugs," and then he. Wait, I gotta turn my camera on. He goes, "This y'all brain on drugs," and he goes, "Hey."
but yeah, he really does look just like him, bro.
He does look like him.
It's so fucked up, dude.
All right, hey,
What if
now-
we actually start interviewing some of
I
these
was,
football
no,
players?
I was just about to say one of us should reach out to interview him.
Beetlejuice.
No, both of them.
So
Do like a Maury episode. You are the father.
Do you pay child support? What do you mean?
I love those things that sidetrack. I love those things with Beetlejuice. They're like, all right, Beetlejuice, you have $5. You go to the store and you don't spend anything. How much do you have left with your $5? 13.
he's like, he gives him a bunch of cash. And he's like, all right. He's like, here, this is around $35, Beetlejuice. Count that out for me. How much money is that? And he goes, he's counted it. He goes, it's about $72.
He's an entrepreneur, bro. He's flipping money. Leave him alone.
That's so messed up.
And he's like, you see 5, I see 13. That's fucked up.
For sure. All right, back to Jared Cook. Like I said, finish. Oh, my bad. You go ahead.
I was like, I'll be quick. I mean, I have him ranked ahead of like Hayden Hurst, but I think I'd rather draft Hayden Hurst than Jared Cook when it comes down to it. I'd rather take
Breaking
it like
news.
just when it comes down to it. So might have to move him
Breaking
ahead.
news.
But there was 9 touchdowns on what was the targets? He did miss 2 games too, so he only
Yeah.
played 14. It was 65 total targets. That's a touchdown rate that's going to come down. The thing about it though is 7 of those 9 came with Drew Brees.
Yeah.
So it's like, fuck, do they come down that much? Like, is it still 7, 8 touchdowns? Because, Drew Brees, we assume, is playing 16. He's been relatively healthy for the most part. So if he
Yeah.
plays 16, he's still going to use Jared Cook in the red zone. So,
His floor is like, what, 4.5, right? Like 5 with Drew Brees?
hey, I mean,
It's crazy.
if it repeated, I wouldn't be like surprised, honestly. So it's like, I don't know. He's like hard to like, I don't think the target volume is going to be super anything crazy high. But I mean,
Yeah, no.
it's like I said, he's really hard for me because it's like Drew Brees threw 7 of those 9 to him, and Drew Brees is like, and Sean Payton, what works, they'll use it and they'll do it over and over. So, and I said I have Drew Brees pegged to lead the league in throwing touchdowns. Like that's like, or he's like top 3, like at least in the top 3 percentages this year for me. So it's like if I do that, it's like how am I supposed to put bury Jared Cook? So he's like really hard for me to rank, but. Go ahead, Tyler. That's all I gotta say. I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's like
Fuck
he's tied to such like a high-powered offense. Obviously, with Drew Brees, so it's like okay, like it's almost hard to not have him in your top 12. The only thing that bothers me is like okay, Finish says the tight end 7 last year, and that was with 9 receiving touchdowns. And if you were listening earlier, I said if you get 5 receiving touchdowns, I look back for the last 5 years,
You're a pimp.
how many touchdowns was like a lot of touchdowns for tight ends. And if you got 5 touchdowns as a tight end, that was a lot. You know, getting double digits tight ends. Touchdowns as a tight end is almost like unfathomable. But yeah, 9 receiving touchdowns last year. That was second most for tight ends. And only finished as the tight end 7. He had 11 end zone targets, second most for tight ends. I mean, does that stay kind of the same? I mean, with Emmanuel Sanders now, does that, eat into that? I mean, that was still, Michael Thomas still 8 with all of his targets. He had 9 touchdowns as well. I mean, the only thing that kind of bothers me is that Kamara only had 6 touchdowns last year, and that was after having 18 one year and 13 the last year. So I would like to think that he'll get back up to like that, 12 plus total touchdowns, and that'll obviously hurt Jared Cook's touchdown upside. Manny Sanders obviously is going to hurt his touchdown upside as well. But I mean, could it be a scenario where, he gets utilized kind of like how Jimmy Graham was, back in the day with Drew Brees? Jimmy Graham was a monster back then. So he's one of those guys where it's tough. I think he's going to get drafted a lot higher because of what he did last year. But I think he'll be like a back end tight end 1. He's one of those tricky guys right there. Like I said, I think he's going to get drafted way higher than where he's actually going to finish, though.
Yeah, if he gets 5, you're not going to be happy you drafted him. If he gets 7+, you're going to be happy you drafted him, probably. Yeah. Maybe, because you're still going to have boomer bust games. Because he's going to have those games where he's like,
where he can win you a week.
Yeah, he might lose you a week. So I don't know. I probably won't have much Jared Cook. We're ranking him, so I'll rank him probably accordingly. But I probably will have almost no shares of him.
Yeah, I mean, his last 5 tight end finishes, tight end 7 last year with the Saints. Like I said, he had 9 touchdowns. That's a lot. The year before that with the Raiders, 100+ targets, tight end 5. But then the next 3 years after that, tight end 13, tight end 36, and tight end 30. So he's been all over the place. And in one of those years, he played with Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like you got to think, it's just, was it a product of like they didn't really have anyone to really funnel the ball to almost outside of Michael Thomas? And when everyone's triple teaming him, maybe he was just the guy who was open when they got close in the end zone. So
yeah, that's probably.
I mean, while you were talking, I pretty much just I have his season stats in my head. My guess.
What's your guess?
52 catches, 640 yards, 7 touchdowns.
That's top 12 tight end.
That'd be top 10 probably.
Yeah, probably top 8.
Well, that's close. 52 catches is the only thing. I just feel like he's not going to get that many catches, and 600 yards isn't a crazy amount. That's when you break that down through 16 games, that's like 30-something yards, 40-something yards. So it's not, I don't know. I feel like he'd get more touchdowns, less catches, not that many yards. So that's why I figured, as opposed to a lot of these other tight ends. Like if Higbee's good, it's because he's going to be more volume-based and not as many touchdowns, I feel like. So where Jared Cook, I feel, is going to be more of like that red zone dependent, not as many catches, but every so often, every few weeks,
upside.
Yeah, every so often he'll get you that, because he's still athletic. Also, he's a athlete. So every so often he will get you that 6 for 85 or 6 for 90, but he'll also get you that 2 for 12, piss you off.
2 target game.
So I think it'll balance out to somewhere around there. That's just my guess, but who the fuck am I?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, like I said, these are early rankings. When we get closer to the season, we'll see if he'll still be in the top 12. I think it's kind of hard, with the touchdown upside, like you said, and that high-powered offense right here. But we could jump into some of these honorable mention players right here.
Who could all be top 12 also?
Who could be all top 12?
All preference.
Now, these are some players that, maybe you had ranked, but I didn't. Obviously we did consensus, which is the average number of all 3 of our rankings. So some of these players we actually had ranked a little bit higher than others. Some of these were right on the cusp of it as well. But who's the first honorable mention guy? We got Mr. Rob Gronkowski of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Comes out of retirement.
Pretty weird.
To join his boy Tom fucking Brady on the Bucs. Dre, you had Gronk at 6 or 7.
Yes.
Me and Anthony did not have him ranked. So you actually had him ranked pretty high too. What is it about Gronk that you...
I mean, I'm not going to just sit here and be like, oh, it's him and Tom Brady. I mean,
but it's him and Tom
Brady.
Brady.
It's him and Tom Brady.
It is, right?
Well, I'm not going to say it's him and Tom Brady, but...
Exactly. Y'all said it for me. See, that we have the chemistry. I didn't
See,
have
you're
to
like,
say
I'm not going to say
exactly.
it.
I don't want to say it's Tom Brady, but y'all going to say it's Tom Brady. No, I like the fact, if you can give me a dude that Tom Brady literally hit up and was like, come play for me, and he's could be the third option on the team just because of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, I mean, just sign me up. Maybe I just fell into the nostalgia of the whole thing, but if he's healthy and he's going to get close to playing weight, and he sat out a whole year, he's fresh. I don't give a fuck what you say. I know they have O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate, but he's not going to come out of retirement to be no fucking backup. So That's just, I mean, my logic. They have the chemistry, and he knows, you know how they're saying Brady's going to implement some of his plays also. So it's not like Gronk's going to go in there, completely blindfolded. And, Arians he's a player's coach, but he's a vets guy too. And, he's going to listen to what these guys have to say. I don't think he's going to surpass like Evans or Godwin, but I just feel like Godwin and Evans are going to help him immensely. And then in the red zone, like, stop it. You're going to tell me he's not going to look for Gronk? Like, that's
touchdown upside.
He's somebody who can get you 9 or 10, because if they can figure out the offense, it's going to probably take a little bit as far as time, but if they can get clicking, I mean, he's somebody who you can draft late and who can win you a league for sure. So I love the upside of Gronk for sure.
I kind of see his upside as like the last player we just discussed, where it's like Jared Cook. I feel like that's his upside. Where kind of it's like I don't think you're going to see high catch totals. You might see some high decent yardage totals and potentially some high touchdown totals, but I think we've seen the best of Gronk 100%.
Yeah.
He looks like true. Yeah, he stood out a year, but he also had like 19,000 body surgeries, and he looks like he's a robot out there. I think unless what's his name? The Tesla owner,
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk is doing some stuff to his body, but he has the money for it. So.
I was gonna say, don't you doubt either of them.
Neuralink
and chill out.
Gronk's out there. He's running a 4.2.
That's what they called him, Bionicle Man.
Bro, watch him play for another 8 years. Just comes out of retirement.
Do you think? Okay, one thing I can say with Gronk that was kind of hard for me was obviously with the Patriots, he's what 90+ snap percentage every single game. I mean, he's out there pretty much every single play.
He can block.
Do you
still.
think he'll be out there that much snap percentage wise with OJ Howard? I don't know why, but they exercised his 5th-year option. You do still have Cameron Brate. I mean, do you think he's going to be on the field 90+% of the time, or do you think it'll be like a 50-60+% of the time? I mean, what do you think his snap percentage is going to be? Which obviously will affect his utilization, Yeah.
I would feel, especially with everything going on, it'll be like a progressive thing. I mean, he's got to get, acclimated to the offense and everything. So maybe by like week, well, here's another thing. Look into their buys and see what's up. Because if it's like an early buy, that's only going to help you. He can learn the playbook. They have 2 weeks essentially, so 3-4 weeks before, they get it going. That's just my.
And you'll think he'll be at full 90+%, 80% or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I just wouldn't see it dropping below like 70.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, sometimes they might want to do like 4 wide or, due to like game flow, they're going to be passing, say they're behind or something. But I just 70% at the lowest, 65.
What do you think, Anthony? For snap,
I'm on the opposite end. I don't think it's. Can it? Yes. So these
yeah,
tight ends,
that's what I'm saying. 90's
I'm not going to argue with it. It's like hard for me because it's like these tight ends are so meh when you get to this point. It's like you can make a case either way.
Yeah.
It comes down, like I said, I start breaking down the targets. Jesus, what the fuck was that? Is that fucking someone breaking?
Bro, Elon Musk has heard you, dog. He was like, "Don't."
Bro, if I was high, that would scare the shit out of me.
Jesus.
Well, anyway, let me go throw my phone in the river.
For real.
I think Chris Godwin's and Mike Chris Godwin's. He has multiple players. Mike Evans kind of demand the same.
Chris Evans
target share. They're going to throw to the running backs. The system always does. OJ Howard isn't going to go away, so it's like, let's just say even best case scenario, there's 120 targets there for the tight end position, same as last year. Let's just say they throw it like the 3rd highest rate, which they did last year or something like that. I see him taking maybe 70% of those tops. I don't even see that, honestly. So I see it closer to like 50.
So you think he gets like 55 targets this year?
Yeah, 55, 60. But like I said, the touchdown upside, I'm not going to argue that. That's why I think his best case scenario is Jared Cooking this year.
Jared Cooking.
So. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like you said, we're going on the offense. Arians' offense doesn't really utilize the tight ends. I know you said like Tom Brady's going to incorporate some of what he likes. I'm thinking, I don't think Gronk's going to be out there a ton. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, he doesn't want to break down again. So
for sure.
I think maybe he'll be a guy where he does have a lot of touchdown upside because maybe like when they get into the red zone, obviously those play action plays that him and Brady were accustomed to. When you get right here inside the 10, play action, boom, Gronk over the top. He'll be security blanket for Brady there. So we could see Gronk push 7-8 touchdowns, but yardage and reception wise, I don't think those numbers are going to be very high for Gronk.
Jared Cook
can't argue because I mean they could hopefully they go to what like 22 personnel, and they can run the double tight. But
they might some.
But who knows? I mean, yeah, we'll see what they want to do. It's this whole situation with the coronavirus and everything is fucking messing us up.
All right, next guy on the honorable mention, you got TJ Hockenson from the Detroit Lions. Anthony, you had Hockenson ranked. I don't think me or Dre had Hockenson ranked at all.
I don't think I have it ranked anymore. So.
All right, done. We don't even want to mention him.
He discredited his honorable mention.
The only reason he was mentioned is because of AVG, and now AVG doesn't want to talk about him. He's
No,
over it.
I was like, because I looked at him, I was like, damn, I had him right here. He might still slip into 12, but he's kind of more in my honorable mention range. I mean,
it's still not bad to talk about him though.
Yeah, we can still talk about him.
We're just kidding. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, I mean, in 12 games last year, 32, 367, 2 touchdowns. Basically, he did all that in one game.
Week one.
I am projecting a little bit more growth from him, this year. Still 59 targets in, what's that, 13 games? 12 games?
What was it, 12 games?
Yeah, 12 games. So, if you pace that out, that's going to be right around 70, 80 targets, and you got to figure, like I said, a little bit of growth. You still have Matthew Stafford back this year. There is some upside built into this guy. Am I the biggest on it? Like I said, I actually moved him down again when I had this ranked, but he's one of those tight ends. Like if he sees 80 targets, he has the talent to do something with it. I think we saw it in one game. So, like I said, I'm projecting a little bit of growth on him, but I've actually moved him down some since I did that.
Well, see, if he doesn't pan out, what I could say is if he doesn't pan out, maybe the Lions just stop drafting tight ends in the top 10 because him and Ebron, you know what I'm saying? And then watch him go somewhere else and be successful. But, I don't know. Hawkinson's a guy, like I said, that week one, he came out 100-plus yards, touchdown. But then after that, it's like he fell off a cliff and it was just non-existent. Obviously, Stafford left after 8 games. But even those other 7 games, it's like he was kind of non-existent. I mean, realistically, what is he, the 3rd or 4th option in the passing attack behind Galladay, Marvin Jones, and you still have Amendola. You go out and you draft DeAndre Swift, who's a very capable pass catcher, who should see a ton of targets. You would like to think so.
Geronimo Allison is
Stafford is one of those guys who could push for league leader in yardage this year.
Yeah.
So there is that. You have a quarterback who can throw for high volume and a quarterback who could throw for high touchdowns. So, like I said, given that, maybe he does overtake Amendola this year as the more of the 3rd receiving option besides the backs in the backfield. So maybe he does overtake him there.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's different when I'm like trying to like rank someone like I still have him above someone like Austin Hooper, because I think the quarterback situation is almost the exact opposite, where it's like I don't see Baker throwing for anywhere near 4,500 to 5,000 yards versus where you can easily see Stafford doing that. And he's done it multiple times. And even I don't see Baker touching 30 touchdowns where Stafford can go over 30 into it. So if I'm taking one of those 2 tight ends, like I said, we even saw that target share last year. Still pretty decent for 12 games. Like I said, I still have a higher target share with him than I do someone like Hooper with a quarterback that's going to throw for, at least we think, a lot more yards and a lot more touchdowns.
For sure. All right, we can jump into the next guy right here. We got Greg Olson. Greg Olson was a guy I had ranked. You guys did not. Greg Olson, I think minus these last 2 years, was a guy who in every single one of my drafts I would go out and I would just draft Greg Olson in like the 5th round because he was just Mr. Reliable, Mr. Consistent. He'd get you like 10 in PPR at least. He'd get you like 10 plus PPR points every single week. You just knew what you were going to get. Never a bust game. Dude. Just one of my favorite players. Greg Olson. Obviously, injuries have been a big thing for him the last couple of years.
Man, it's unfortunate for sure.
Goes off, signs with Seattle. And this is more of just like the landing spot of like where we've touched on it a lot of times in these episodes where we talk about the tight end position in Seattle is a valuable fantasy option. They just use them. I don't know what it is.
Disley, Hollister.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham. So, and I was just looking at, like I said, 5 touchdowns is a lot for a tight end, to get. So I was just looking at these tight end receptions to the tight ends over the last 4 years for the Seahawks. 7 touchdowns, 8, 15, and 8. So I was just taking a baseline of, okay, let's just give him 7 to 8 touchdowns. Greg Olson, that automatically with the touchdown upside alone should put him as a tight end 1.
That's 42 points right there.
Yeah, even last year, Disley and Hollister had 86 targets, and that was with Metcalf and Tyler Lockett both getting 100+. So, if you can tell me a guy's going to get me around 80 targets, but he's got the touchdown upside of 7 to 8 touchdowns, as a guy who's, he's probably going to go in the 13th, 14th round in drafts.
Yeah, and in 10-man leagues undrafted for sure.
I don't know what it is about the offense. It's just when they get in close, I don't know if they use the play action or whatnot, but it's usually when they get in close, they utilize the tight ends. And like I said, we've seen some tight ends who aren't really talented, like a Disley. No disrespect to these guys, or a Jake Hollister. Right but like they're not Greg Olson, and I know Greg Olson's getting older, but I mean they're not that savvy veteran of Greg Olson. So yeah, I do like Greg Olson a lot. Like I said, I think if maybe like I said, maybe you go out and you get a tight end and then you draft another tight end and maybe you could trade equity and whatnot, stuff like that.
That's right.
Yeah, I like Greg Olson a lot. I think he'll be a good late round pick.
Yeah, like you said, he's a savvy veteran. I mean, Pete Carroll likes his vets. He's like a really good locker room guy. I mean, and like you said, they feed that position, and he knows. Like you said, he knows as far as like the route running, the finding the spots in the zones. I mean, and he's way older than all these other guys. But he's been in the league like 13 years, 12 years, something crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's been productive everywhere he's gone. I mean, he has been injured, but he was good with the Bears. He had a lot of good years with the Panthers, so he can fit any scheme. We're all rooting for the guy too. Dude's been hurt, but yeah, landing spot was perfect for him. He can be one of those 7, 8, like you said. He can get 10 touchdowns, and it wouldn't be crazy. Because just the way the Seahawks.
Do you think he could potentially lead the Seahawks in receiving touchdowns? No.
I think Tyler Lockett
it could happen.
Lockett's been consistent year in and year out with that. I mean, can it happen? Yeah, I think it could happen.
Sure, yeah.
Like if I had a gun to my head, I would say no.
Yeah, no, but I mean, he is going to be one of those in the red zone. I mean, they have DK, but inside especially with inside the three that play action tight end leak, that's him all day.
Yeah, my only concern is if you tell me Greg Olson's gonna play all the snaps, I'll move him up in my rankings. I don't necessarily know if he's gonna be the main tight end. It could be a little bit of a carousel, which makes you want to stay away from it. That's something where we say this is early, so I mean come closer to season and all that, we might be able to find out more. But as of right now, I'm kind of envisioning him not being the only one there. I think the other guys are still involved. So like I said, if he's the only one involved, I'll move him way up my rankings. If he's not, he's gonna just probably stay in that 15-ish range for me, something like that.
More of a matchup based.
Yeah, more of a matchup based tight end.
For sure. All right, we jump into the next guy here. You got Noah Fant. This is your boy Dre. I think if they didn't go out and address so many positions in the draft, they go out and they get Jerry Jeudy in the first round, then they get KJ Hamler, who's a speedster as well. If they didn't go out and get all these guys, I think I would have been more high on Noah Fant, and I probably would have pushed him into my top 12. Like I said, it's kind of early, so could he sneak into my top 12? 100%. I do think Drew Lock is primed for a big year with all the weapons that he has. What is it about Noah Fant that you like a lot?
I mean, I've been saying it a lot. He's extremely athletic, and with tight ends, what I like to look for, especially rookies. I mean, in general, I like to look for it. But his yards per reception, I want to say 14. Yeah, yards per catch 14.05. So I mean, he's getting downfield. Drew Lock, the last 4 games or 5 games, Drew Lock was, he was giving him the rock. He had a 100-yard game. He's shown flashes. At the beginning of the year, he was going through his little rookie bumps, just making wrong options as far as his routes, blocking, just bonehead mistakes. But as the year went on, I mean, they like him, and that's one thing I like too. They like him a lot. So I think they got the receivers. I think it'll help him a little bit because I mean, Jerry Jeudy is going to get some attention. KJ Hamler is going to blow the top off, and he's a matchup problem. That's why I like him. Especially with Melvin Gordon. I mean, he's second year. He's going to get better blocking. He's going to add some weight. I just think he's going to make that step forward. And I mean, he had 40 catches for 560, which is impressive, and 3 touchdowns. So he didn't need a lot of 66 targets. I mean, so he didn't need a lot to get 562 yards.
Yeah. So
I like the athleticism. And like I said, rookies usually don't do that well, and he did pretty good. 40 for 562 isn't bad, for a rookie.
Yeah, I saw a stat. It was his rookie numbers compared to Kittle's rookie numbers, and I know it's just something, but they were exactly identical.
Yeah, same college, they put him out. Him, Hockenson, and Kittle. So
I've lost my target summary sheets, so trying to weigh in, but I had him there first. But to Tyler's point, they brought in some more receiving options, and I don't think you draft Jerry Jeudy to not give him some targets
for sure.
The Hamburglar is going to get some targets.
KJ Hamburglar.
And the Hamburglar. It's going to get some targets. They went out and paid Melvin Gordon, to be involved in this offense. So I do see him more in the runs. I think the upside for the offense in general is like middle, like balanced.
Yeah.
But I could easily see them being more of a run-heavy offense. So if that's the case, I struggle with where it comes down to where we were talking almost like with Austin Hooper, giving him a high target share. But like he is talented, and it's just I almost kind of feel like it might be a repeat close to what we saw last year, which it was like tight end 14, 15. Just based off of, I said, new mouths to feed, new targets, where I think the offense is kind of headed, but definitely athletic, can definitely make some big plays, so he can definitely have some boom or bust games in there. So I had him originally in my top 12, but I moved him down a little bit.
Yeah, I one thing I can say is I do think this Denver Broncos offense is going to be pretty exciting to watch with Drew Lock in his second year.
For sure.
I think he could be a guy where he could push 4,500 passing yards. I wouldn't be surprised to see that.
Cannon.
Next guy on the honorable mention list right here. I know Mike would really like this guy. We got Eric Ebron from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another guy where it's like when I was doing the early rankings, I had him in there, and then just kind of really digging in deep into the numbers. I took him out. Obviously we saw that one year where he had 14, 15 touchdowns, which is just absurd for not only a tight end but just in general to have that many tight end touchdowns. Goes to the Steelers. I do like this move for the Steelers personally. Fantasy-wise, it was kind of tricky for me. Still got Juju there. Deontay Johnson, I know we're all pretty high on Deontay Johnson. And then, the Van Stance is still there as well. So, what do you gauge Ebron right here? Did either of you guys even contemplate putting him in your top 12? Because I contemplated back and forth. Even him and Cook, I was kind of back for number 12.
I'm a Steelers fan, and I don't know if I would be able to. Just because, like you said, all that, there's still Vance there and everything. And then also this year for the draft, normally the past couple of years since Ryan Shazier got injured, we've been really focused on just drafting defense. But this was the first year where we were the offense in the second round. We got Chase Claypool, then Anthony McFarland. We're kind of they've been working on some skill position players, which don't normally happen. So that on top of all that, I have a hard time putting him up there.
Yeah, I didn't really think of him either. Basically what you said though, the landing spot, I was just like, damn, he just went to where it's crowded. So I was like, they're just guys I liked more. He is talented, but it's just would it surprise me if he got 6'7"? No, because he is a dude is still a problem. He's still young. He's been in the league for so long, but just
Yeah, I didn't even really consider him too much for the top 12.
Anything, like you say, anything can happen. The Angels could win the pennant. It could happen.
It could happen.
I need to clip that, by the way, throw that as a drop.
All right, Ebron, you done? Sorry, dude.
Ebron.
For sure.
We have seen him score double-digit touchdowns before, so it's not like he can't get up there in the end zone. So
he probably calls Andrew Luck all the time, dog, just come back.
Just come back. Trying to get that paper.
He's like, please, I'm trying to make some paper for sure.
For sure. All right, we're jumping to the last guy right here on the honorable mention list. We got Jonnu Smith of the Tennessee Titans. It's kind of crazy, just made me think of, but Delaney Walker, I know, just another savvy veteran. He's still out there, available free agent.
This might do too.
But Jonnu Smith from the Tennessee Titans. Anthony, you had him ranked. I think what did you have him ranked at? 11 or 12?
I think 11.
Yeah. We didn't have him ranked, but what is it about Jonnu Smith that was intriguing to you?
Some of my tight end rankings do come down to upside. I'm not gonna draft the Greg Olsons, the Jared Cooks. I'm gonna draft the guys where it's I want the kind of, you could say, unknown. Even Hayden Hurst, I think he has some upside. That's why I'll take a shot in Hayden Hurst. Or I want these guys that have some upside. I'm not trying to have that tight end where it's all right, well, I got a 4. I got another 4. I got 20 this week. It's maybe not 20, but 12. It's I want these guys that can potentially break out and do some damage and not have to worry about tight end and be this year's a Kittle or a Hurst. I'm not projecting Kittle or Austin Hooper, but Delaney Walker is gone. I think I lost the target summary, so I think he had where is it? I'm trying to pull up his targets. He had 35 receptions, 439 yards last year. 3 total touchdowns. Delaney Walker had about half the team targets still, maybe a little bit more than that. So I'm projecting some growth in that area, as well as I don't think the Titans are going to be exactly as successful as they were running the ball. I think they're still going to be their top running team, but it was just like it almost like worked out from every game. So I'm projecting a little bit more passing volume, like not much, but a little bit more. I mean, Derrick Henry did break off run after run after run for these big gains, and they did lose their left tackle. Let's see how that affects them. But, we go into the stats of Mike Gesicki and catch rate and stuff like that. It's the exact opposite with Jonnu Smith. You have someone who's a true catch rate of 89.7%, 77.8 catch rate, contested catch rate 85.7. So we talk about these big guys who you can throw a jump ball to, which Channel's not the best at. You got Jonnu Smith at 85.7. His fantasy points per target was 2.33, which was third among all tight ends. His QB rating when targeted 120.3. So you're seeing, like I said, the numbers are the exact opposite of what we saw in kind of like Gesicki's numbers. You're seeing a lot of kind of like, whoa, he was that high in that. Oh, he was that high in that. Like I said, I'm projecting him to take majority of those tight end targets this year. A little bit of growth, like I said, a little bit more passing volume, I think. And yeah, just kind of have him right there the upside. And I think he had 85 rushing yards or something like that. So he's obviously athletic enough for him to use him on rushing downs.
I actually like this dude a lot, but since I own him, I didn't want to be a homer. But with him, it's more of an eye test. Like I would watch a lot of. I mean, I had the package, so you would watch a lot of games since you have all of them, right? And when you watch the Titans and he would catch the ball, you would think it was Corey Davis, like when Corey Davis would actually fucking catch the ball. But when you just see him run, you're like, dude, this dude is and he's an athlete too. He ran a 4.6, 40 at the combine.
4.62.
Yep, but he's an athlete. I forgot what game. I want to say it was the Texans. Dude, they gave him a tight end toss, and he ran it for 60 yards. That's just the kind of athlete that he is. I mean,
That's
look
right there.
Oh, there we go. I remember watching it. That's when I was like, dude, I think I went and picked him up right after that play. I was like, you don't toss the ball to a tight end like that. And he just dusts people. So it's like that. And Delaney's gone, like you said. So it's a path of least resistance of as far as playing time. And yeah, they like him a lot. And then in the playoffs, that's where you could see his potential because he's a problem. He's a big body. He was one of those, he could block. He had to learn like the nuances of like route running. So he had to kind of more or less go the backwards route.
Yeah.
He was like super athletic and big body, but he needed to learn the position. And now he's like learning, the routes and where to sit in the zones. And with that athleticism, I mean, yeah, dude, he can break out. And like you said, catch percentage is really good. And like I was saying, I'm a big yak guy or a yards per catch. He's at 12.5 yards per catch. Like, so I like anytime you can get a tight end double digits it's not make or break, but I just like that it shows, big playability. So
Yeah.
Get you yards. I mean, that means every time he catches it, that's what in fantasy 1.7 points. So take it.
Savage.
Jonnu
Yeah, I mean the guy's talented. One thing I didn't like about him was pretty much he's the third option behind. At best, he's the third option behind A.J. Brown and Corey Davis in a run-heavy offense. I don't know if what made him so efficient was Tannehill's accuracy of, leading the NFL in accuracy. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how he finishes. I'm not as high as him. Like I said, it's a run-heavy offense. They want to ground and pound and play defense. I think he'll have some games where he'll, obviously he's more of like a week-to-week matchup kind of tight end.
Yeah, for sure. He's someone you can,
for me at least,
be your second tight end. No, for sure. Unless you really think he's gonna ball, he's someone you take as like your second tight end and use him as a bye week or one of those where if he's had like 3 or 4 bad games and you're like good matchup, he's due like.
Yeah, if 1 week he's playing against the Cardinals and like last year the Cardinals, it was like, okay, you're starting all your tight ends against the Cardinals. Yeah, like any if you would have just started all the tight ends against the Cardinals last year, you would have had the number 1 tight end. So it's like our scenario like that. Okay, he's playing against a bad team that's bad against defending the tight ends. All right, yeah, I'm gonna throw him my lineup right there, matchup based.
Do you think there's any way he surpasses Corey Davis halfway through as like a number 2? Because I mean, they've given Corey Davis shots. He was up there in drops last year. Like he's been a flop for a guy who went top 10.
Yeah, 5th overall.
Yeah, he definitely didn't live up to the hype. So it's
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. I was like, I can see a scenario where he does.
Yeah, that's why, and that's another reason I like him because I mean, pass heavy, but yeah, at number 2, especially when you're an inline blocker where you can pop out, just you can scheme him open in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So, and if Derrick Henry gets hurt, well, fire up Darrington Evans too, but that'll work.
For sure. All right, that ends our honorable mention list right there.
Yep, that's so I mean, did you guys learn anything? What'd you learn today? Let's make this like Full House.
Dude, I learned that I need to go throw my phone away.
Yeah, what was that?
I learned that Elon Musk has hacked the phones.
What did we learn? I learned that
Vernon Davis played in the league for 20 years.
that's pretty wild. He tipped me.
It's still playing, isn't it?
I don't.
Is that what
Technically?
Did he retire? That's what we learned. We don't know if Vernon Davis is still in the league.
I don't know, but I met him at
Okay.
Marquee once, and he
Marquise Brown?
nope.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was at Marquise's house, and Vernon showed up, and we were like, "Oh, what's up, Mr. Davis in the fucking house?"
Bro, that was week 1, right? The Ravens Dolphins, right?
Yeah.
I remember I had Lamar Jackson. I was like, this is going to be the best season ever. Ever.
Yeah,
I was like, this is gonna be the longest.
I did win the league, though. So, but it was
I
because
knew
of Lamar
that was
Jackson.
I knew that was gonna happen because
For sure.
I've watched Dolphins games before with these guys.
It
So
was him.
that
It was him and
engraved-
Mark Andrews. I had him and Mark Andrews. Like, that's just 10 touchdowns from your tight end on double points. Just
Well,
it's
listen.
bad. It's lucky. Obviously, I got lucky that happened. But
It's been a great time, and I appreciate you guys all for joining us. This has been the AVG Fantasy Football Podcast, the number one podcast,
in the world,
the number one fantasy football podcast. Don't forget it, okay?
yeah.
Thanks for listening. If
Subscribe.
you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a review on the Apple Podcast app. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Do the most. Like this video.
Yeah.
We post out daily content everywhere on all these social media platforms I just listed. So new episodes every Monday and Friday. Live streams on Thursday night if you want to catch the Friday episode early. Live stream 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Thursday nights. Thanks for listening, and us little boys are out. God damn it.